All right, here we go. Welcome everybody to episode number 58. Episode 58 of Sports Cards Live. Before we get into it, tonight's guest, I want to thank last Wednesday's guest, Jeff Wilson of Sports Card Investor. And I want to thank last Saturday's guest, which was Steve Menzie and Mitch Adelstein, both of the upcoming virtual Sports Card Expo. And then I had Amit Acharya join me on After Hours. Some fun episodes. Thank you, everybody, for watching them, and thanks to those guests. This coming Saturday, Halloween, we're going to be doing a Pokemon special. My guests are going to be Karn Rai and Yamwax. Very excited to have these guys on the show. Afterwards, my buddy Ralph will be joining me for After Hours. Next Saturday, my guest is Richard Pollock. He's a professional NHL scout for the Florida Panthers. He'll be joining me, and we're going to find a way to mix professional scouting in with sports card collecting. I want to welcome all new viewers to the show. I want to thank Joel for publicizing his appearance and for bringing new viewers to the channel. I want to welcome all of you. If you're not yet subscribed to the channel on YouTube, please do go ahead and do that. I would greatly appreciate it. We're just hit 1,350 subscribers, so climbing that quite nicely. Stay tuned to the end of the show. We're going to show the PC card of the day. And as always, your comments and questions are in play, so feel free to post them up. And I want to do a special shout out to the fellow YouTube channel Hobby Hotline, the hobby's only live call-in show. I'm a guest host on that show every so often, so check that out. And of course, please subscribe to that as well. All right, let's get to tonight's guest. He started out in the hobby in the mid-'80s when he was 16 years old and began setting up at card shows. In 1990, he opened his first card store, and from there started buying and selling autographs and developing his expertise. He now represents several athletes from a marketing perspective. He's a seasoned poker player, and he hosts his live Facebook show from his car called Ask Joel Anything. He's a fan of the Chicago Blackhawks, the Green Bay Packers, hailing from Chicago, Illinois. Let's bring him out. Here he comes. Joel Alpert, welcome to episode 58 of Sports Cards Live. How you doing tonight, man?
I'm great. What an introduction.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's a lot of fun to do. So listen, we're gonna start right off here, Joel. Tell us about the day you were born.
Okay, February 13th, 1969, or as Bobby Hull, who's featured in this story, would say, 1969. My mother goes to Michael Reese Hospital to give birth to her first child. My father is obviously there. And the highlight of the day was not the fact that Dave Alpert's first son was born, first child, but Bobby Hull was in the waiting room that day as Bart Hull was born the same day around the same time. It's kind of funny now because here we are 51 years later, and I've managed marketing for Bobby Hull for the last 8 years. But literally, if you could imagine 1969, Bobby Hull was like Michael Jordan in the 90s. It was like larger than life having, that man there. He was one of the biggest athletes in all of sports. Hockey was much more respected than it is today. So, a hockey stud was just, unbelievable. But it's, it's like the feature of my, birth is that my dad didn't give a crap. His son was born. He was smoking cigars in the waiting room with Bobby Hull, for hours and whatever. Now, funny side note, Bart Hull, Bobby's son, who was born the same day I finally met. Bobby and I were set up in the atrium at a Blackhawks game selling merchandise, and Bart was in town for the game, and I finally met Bart, and it was just kind of so weird that, we were both there at the same time. There was no doubt they didn't mix up babies. Bart looks just like Bobby. Bart, though he played hockey, he was played up there in Canada for a few years. I think he was a quarterback. I don't remember, for Edmonton or something like that. But anyway, so I don't know if you remember him.
I remember
CFL.
I'm not a big CFL fan, but I certainly remember hearing about Bart Hull and thinking to myself, it's too bad that Bobby couldn't have spawned two superstar Hall of Fame players, because Brett Hull certainly had a career worthy of storytelling, but Bart Hull didn't turn out to be much of a celebrity in sports or anything that I'm aware of. But okay, so listen, you've been in the hobby now, Joel, for about 35 years, the hobby or the industry. Tell us a little bit about your industry and collecting background. What have you been through in 3.5 decades?
Well, gosh, I started collecting baseball cards as a child, like many did, and obviously in the 70s and 80s, it was much different than now. You'd go to the store, you'd buy packs of Topps cards, you'd open them up, you'd sort them by teams, you know the routine.
Yeah.
But as I collected through the years, as soon as I got a driver's license, I met a friend, and we started setting up a card shows, and we created a business. I later even adopted the name. If you remember, in the early '80s, late '90s, everybody had a nickname. Alan Rosen was Mr. Mint. Darren Prince was the Prince of Cards. There, Bill Henderson, the King of Commons. I was specializing in rookie cards in the mid '80s. Don Mattingly, Wade Boggs, Ryan Sandberg. They were some of the hottest guys out there. So my friends started calling me the Rookie Stud. And when I turned it into a business in 1990s, a few years out of high school, actually, that's not true. In the 80s, I started the business name because I had business cards, and it used to say the Rookie Stud Sport Cards. And later, I changed it to TRS Enterprises, which became my corporation in the 90s. So,
Okay.
that
Keep going. Tell us more about kind of what took you then from around the 90s till like here we are in 2020.
Okay,
you got 20 more years to cover. Give us a bit more about the history.
I went sober. I went sober in 1990, which was about the same time I opened my first card shop in Lake Forest, Illinois. It was called TRS Sport Cards. I looked for the cheapest location I could find in town. I was in the back of a mall facing a bank drive-through parking lot, and we opened the doors, and people came in droves. People sold. People came to buy cards. I watched the industry grow. Obviously, we started as a pure baseball card store that sold posters. You remember the old Costacos Brothers posters? They were really cool, and they gave me a poster rack because I ordered so many, and it was big business. But as time grew, autographs started to become a little bit more collectible. Now, obviously, we've come full circle now because there's more autograph dealers than I've ever met. I know there's a lot of sport card dealers, but there's people now that's all they do is deal in autographs. So around 94, I have an opportunity to purchase one of the shops that I shopped at as a child, Hawthorne Stamp and Coin, it was called at the time, in Vernon Hills, Illinois. Kind of funny side note, my store in Lake Forest and the store I bought in Vernon Hills, in between it in West Lake Forest was located the headquarters for the Leaf Corporation, who obviously made Donruss cards back then. So I had two stores surrounding them. And for some reason, all the employees of Leaf would go to a different store down the road to sell all their backdoor stuff, not me. I don't know why, because I was the biggest buyer in the area. But anyway, so I buy the Stamp and Coin shop. First thing I do is I rename it Coins and Cards. I take stamps out of there. I really felt there was no market for stamps. It was just not a big money-making thing. But we did deal in coins and currency, gold. Obviously, scrap for gold has become a huge business in the last 20 years. Back then, we were one of the few buying gold, so it was obviously quite lucrative. But once I opened the mall store, autographs became a huge thing. And this is around 94, 95. And I was looking to buy autographs from the local chasers. And I had a lot of honest chasers who sold me autographs. People that don't know what chasers are, chasers is a full-time business for a lot of people now. Back then, it wasn't that big of a deal. These guys would go hang out at ballparks, hang out at road team hotels. Later, they would hang out at hotels when movies were being filmed in certain cities. They would just solicit people for autographs. For old-time card people in the industry, let me drop a name. Dave Medema was one of the first autograph chasers in history. Dave is still with us, but I would used to go to like a White Sox game and see him afterwards, and he would have a binder of baseball cards with the little clips in it so they could be signed. And he would a guy would walk out of the clubhouse. That's say Salome Barojas, and he's no longer with us, but an old White Sox pitcher. He would sign 50 or 60 cards for Dave, and then he would look at Dave and say, "Is that all you got?" Now you're lucky if a guy signs one autograph for you and doesn't run away, because they all know that everybody's making $1 on them. But anyway, so I was looking for people, who were chasing to get me autographs. I ran into a problem. A guy opened a frame shop down the street from me, and he had every autograph of everybody. And as you can imagine, in Chicago in the 90s, what was the hottest thing going? Well, it was the Chicago Bulls. And I would buy tons of stuff from him, from local athletes and out-of-town athletes. And I had no suspicion that it might not be real back in the early. And And I say 94, but I'm thinking it might have been a couple years before that I even opened this store to try to give us a calendar on it. But one day I walk into his frame shop, and this is probably after a year of being his number one customer, and I was selling this stuff. People would come in and buy Frank Thomas autographs and Ryan Sandberg, all the popular players in Chicago. And I would walk into a store, and he had a stack of 100 John Elway, 100 Dan Marino, and 100 Joe Montana autograph 8x10s. And I looked at him and I said, John, you're buying autographs from a counterfeiter. There is no way these guys are signing this type of volume. And I cut him off right then. Within 24 hours, I called up Upper Deck, who I was already dealing in cards with, and I said, I want to buy Michael Jordan autographs from you. Turned out to be the greatest phone call I ever made, because my company was the number one hobby distributor until the end of the 90s for Upper Deck authenticated product. As you can imagine, the market for Upper Deck back then, it was nowhere near the prices today. I think Jordan jerseys are $5,000 or $6,000 now. Back when it started, I was paying $300 wholesale and selling the jerseys for $600, $700, $800 each, which was an incredible margin. But who would have thunk that a jersey like that's now $5,000 or $6,000, and that's mainly because Michael doesn't want to sign, so he gets so much money. Upper Deck has to pay him through the roof. So,
yeah. Are you done? Is that the end of the story or what?
My life ended there in '96. Anyway, as the years went on, we cleaned up our autograph act. We started doing signings with athletes. I believe the first one we ever did, a company out of Peoria came up and would negotiate a deal with Grant Hill. And Grant Hill was one of the biggest stars in the NBA at the time. But he wasn't doing signings. He turned down Upper Deck deals. And we did a signing with Grant Hill, who was an amazing player. We did Kevin Garnett his rookie year. His sophomore year, we did a signing with Garnett and Stephon Marbury both together. And, even though Steph's career didn't go as well as Garnett's did, he still was a hot shot at the time. I want to tell a funny story as long as we're talking about these. The second year with Garnett and Marbury, Stephon Marbury's wearing a bracelet around his wrist, a gold and diamond bracelet. Must have been multiple hundreds of diamonds in this bracelet, and it said Steph on it. And, really, 100,000 plus bracelet. Kevin Garnett had a rubber band around his wrist. And I looked at Kevin Garnett, who was one of the funniest, nicest guys I ever met. And I said, Steph's wearing a $100,000 bracelet, and you have a rubber band worth less than a penny around your wrist. I go, I thought you were the big shot on this team. And he looked up and didn't take a second. He looked up and said, Steph never done one of these signings before. He don't know about the pens going all over the place. He'll learn the hard way. So he was ready for that. But as time went by, because I was doing signings, when people would bring in athletes, especially a guy up in Milwaukee area, started doing the Packers, he would call me up and ask me to run his signings because of my expertise. So it turned out around 95, 96, I did everybody on the Super Bowl champion Packers. Reggie White a couple times, Brett Favre 5 times. I used to get my picture in the Milwaukee paper sitting next to Brett. There was a series of other players, the Robert Brooks, I believe Antonio Freeman. One of the worst signings we did was Gilbert Brown and Sean Jones. Sean Jones was a stockbroker in the offseason, and he gave us advice on a stock to buy, which I invested like $15,000 in, and needless to say, I watched it go to zero. So that was one of the worst signings ever. And somewhere in the middle there, we did a signing with Pete Rose, and Pete Rose, as many people may or may not know, I believe him and Bobby Hull are 1-2 all time in signing the most autographs. I think Bobby's 1, but people will tell me Pete signs a lot too. But anyway, Pete was an interesting day. I picked him up at the airport. He gets in my car, tells me I look just like the famous memorabilia dealer Mike Bertolini, who I think he met in jail, which we could say because everybody knows they both spent time in jail. But Pete gets in the car and he looks at me and he says, the Bulls are playing the Orlando Magic tonight in the playoffs. What's the line? And I look at him and I say 17 and a half. And he goes, way too many points. For the next 8-9 hours during the signing, we did a public and a private. in Lincolnshire, Illinois, right down the road from my house here. Pete would ask me over and over, "Are you sure it's 17 and a half? That's way too many points." So we get through the day of signing, and we're handing Pete a check for $25,000 at the end of the day. And I go, "Hold on, Pete." I go, "If you think 17 and a half is too much, want to go double or nothing on today's work?" Now, I thought it was a no-brainer. Pete was going to take this bet. And I would never bet 25,000 on a game, even though I've bet very much money on individual games over the years. Never anything over 5,000. But to have a story to tell that I bet Pete Rose 25,000 in a basketball game would have made this story 10 times better than it's going to end. But needless to say, Pete looked at me and he said, "I would take that bet, but I don't bet basketball." At the end of the story, you could look it up to find the exact date. The Bulls beat Orlando by around 30 points that night. It wasn't close. So I could have got a free signing with Pete Rose if Pete would have taken the bait.
So you would have won that one. All right, let's take a minute. Let's say hello to the people we have watching. We have a few comments. We'll get to those, then we're going to continue on with your storytelling. So first of all, I want to say hello to Name. Thank you for joining, Name. Good to see you. Canadian Collector. Hello to everyone. I finally caught you live. Nice Steelers logo there. Steve Menzie. Evening all. Okay, Joel. I'm staying up late for this one. Don't let me down. The pressure is on. Legion. Welcome to you. Rondell. Welcome to you as well. Tiger Jordan. Looking for another great night of content and learning with Jeremy and Sports Cars Live. Happy to have you, Tiger Jordan. Ziggy No in the house. Good evening to you, Ziggy. Al G. Hello. Hope we're all having a great evening. Hope you are too. Al. Hamburger on. Good to see you. Ziggy says, "I love the car cam." Good evening. Yeah, that's quite the angle we have going for tonight. I love it. Matt Raff says, "Hello to Joel." Terry Fortune. Good evening to you. Adam D. Good to see you. Paul Cashman in the house. Jacob Richardson says, "Joel Alpert is a class act." Malone Money Mindset. Good evening to you, sir. Facebook user says, what cards should I be collecting right now? Hall of Famers. Fire and Ice says, "Hi, it's Terry here. Is there a market for autographs for poker players?" I do see them. For sale at times, Terry. Joel, do you know anything about a market for autographs of poker players?
Listen, my only experience in autographs, and understand, I was there during the poker boom. I lived in Vegas from 2001 to 2004. During that time, Chris Moneymaker won the World Series of Poker, and poker exploded. We went from a taboo backroom type thing where people thought we were bad, poker was bad, and it was just like playing a slot machine, to we started to get more and more respect in the world. The games changed from limit games to no limit games, for people that know poker. During those years, I was friends with almost every famous poker player that you saw. Moneymaker, I only played with once or twice because he wasn't a Vegas regular. But your fellow Canadian, Daniel Negreanu, was a very close friend of mine during those years. And I discussed doing signings with him and seeing if there was a market on eBay. I got to tell you, I never followed through and never got it done. I don't know about values these days. My friends tell me Doyle Brunson, one of the top poker players in the history of poker, sells very well. I have a friend looking for authentic Stu Unger autographs. Those who don't know Stu won the World Series of Poker 3 times, and then a year later was found dead in a hotel room. He had demons that he couldn't get over. Stu was one of those old school poker players that would make $1 million on Monday, and then by Wednesday he'd be broke again. These guys in the old days, there was a lot of them that, they were in and out of money faster than you ever saw, but they all took care of each other because they all knew that was the only way they'd survive. He's very hard to find autographs of. There's some of his old World Series of Poker receipts, and they don't know if he signed it or somebody who signed him up for the tournament signed it. But the truth is the only time I know of poker players signing autographs was for our good friend, your good friend, and my good friend, Brian Gray from the Leaf Company. He's used them to sign trading cards over the years. I know Topps has used them for Alan Ginter cards over the years. Mm-hmm. But I don't know of a real strong market. I would assume if somebody wants to learn more about it, look up the biggest names. Look up Phil Hellmuth, Daniel Negreanu, Doyle Brunson. Go search on eBay for their autographs and see what type of stuff. Don't look what people are asking. Look what completed items, because that's going to tell you what people are really paying. And if you go to look up Phil Hellmuth and can't find a completed item, well, then it probably means nobody cares.
Right. Right.
You know, so
Yeah. So here, Malone Money Mindset says probably for the big players like Phil Ivey and others, poker players have a nice following. I could see that. I mean, I'm a poker player. I'd pick up a couple on the cheap. I wouldn't put much money into them. But okay, what do we have here? Scott Hamilton told me I should take up stamp collecting. Instead of collecting autographs. Well, you'll be very alone very soon, I would have to think. Matt Rath says Joel has a great reputation. That's always nice to hear. Dennis Lescombe Sr., Dennis from Niagara Falls, new to the channel. Hi, Joel. Welcome to the channel, Dennis. Great to see you. And for anyone who's recently joined in the last few minutes, I will ask you to like this video on YouTube and hit that little subscribe icon. That always helps out as well. Greatly appreciated. Jeff McMahon, good evening to you. And Brent Turman, Hawks fan, checking in the Peg. Very nice, very nice. I'm originally from the Peg myself. All right. Oh, and Jason Pringle comes into the house. Break time with the boys. Nice to catch part of the show. Good to see you, Jason, as always, man. Thanks for stepping up and stepping in. Okay, Joel. So, you had a card shop in the 90s. I had one in the early 90s, and I was done by 93 or 94. You kept on going. And we talked about this the other day, but I never, when I had a card shop, there was no such thing as DealerNet. And DealerNet is something that I think is not, I don't even know if it's around anymore, but it's something that nobody really talks about. Can you tell us I think a lot of people want to learn a bit more about the history of the hobby, cards-wise. Can you tell us what DealerNet was and what it's doing now, if it's still around?
Okay, DealerNet, let's compare it to eBay in the 90s, but it started as a coin dealer net. And like we literally, to get a feed for it, instead of dialing in, we would have a television antenna on the roof of our shopping mall, and we would get a feed all day long, and we would just watch people post buying this, selling this. And it was an unbelievable network that was able to offer us buying and selling with dealers that we never saw. When we'd get 12 cases of cards from a different product, we would literally be able to wholesale some of them online, because the margin would be better than retailing it in the store. Because some of those products in the 90s, as I'm sure you're aware, you buy a case of cards for $800 and dealers would be paying $2,400 for it. You had to double box it. They didn't want the case shipped with just a label on it. They were real anal about that. But it was an unbelievable network, and it was a trust system. I would send you the case, you would send me a check. Obviously, people got burned over the years. I got lucky. I never got burned. Maybe I avoided dealing with people I didn't know well enough. But as the hobby progressed, I was buying and selling weird things on there. I mean, obviously trading cards. One of my specialties in Chicago during the 90s was dealing in top Bulls rookies, because as everybody knows, the Bulls were the greatest show on earth for all those years in the 90s. I would put a post out buying Michael Jordan rookies, buying this, buying Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant. We can go into a little sidebar there about my obsession with buying these cards. But it was just unbelievable. And, dealers would message me right through the system. I got 4 Jordan rookies, $200 each. Ship them on out, and, whatever. I'll go back to that, but let me tell you, I started buying and selling. I mean, I was in Chicago during a boom that I never thought I was going to be involved with. If hope people don't mind me telling a story, but I'm at the Cleveland National, and my number one customer, a big corporate guy, I mean, the type of guy who'd walk in the store and we gave him a line of credit, and he just would come in and go, I'll take that, that, and that. And then every month or two, I'd call him up and go, okay, bring in a credit card. And he would, he'd pay his bill. We didn't, he was that type of guy. And we're talking about, high 5 digits sometimes. He shows up in Cleveland, and he doesn't buy cards. He walks up to a lady I knew from Chicago, and he bought probably $8,000 or $9,000 worth of Beanie Babies off her table. And I had hair back then, unlike now, but there was steam coming off the top of my head. I'm like, how am I losing this business from this guy? So being in Chicago, those of you who don't know, the Thai company that made Beanie Babies was located in Oak Brook, Illinois. So all of the earliest Beanie Babies were distributed in the Chicago area. All the princesses, not the princesses, the teddy bears, the Royal Blue Peanut, all these early versions that went for stupid money were there. So I learned about beanies, and I started buying beanies until I filled his collection. And then when he was done, when he had one of everything, I started selling them on DealerNet. But literally, I had me and my staff would go to there were Beanie Baby shows like card shows every weekend. There'd be 3 or 4 in the Chicago area. Me and my staff would all go with a stack of cash, and we'd had a list. And if you can buy them for that price or less, that's what we pay. And this was obviously in the early days of AOL because I was emailing people my list. So the dealers would know, okay, Joel's paying $90 each for these. So they put them out for $125. And if they didn't sell it, they'd sell it to me at the end of the weekend for $90. So we would come back on Sunday night, and I would stack a table with everything we bought, and I listed them on DealerNet. And these guys ate them up, and I didn't know at the time because this is the late 90s now. They literally were flipping them on eBay. I'd sell somebody a royal blue elephant, which was one of the rarest ones ever, for like $3,000, let's say. And they'd put it on eBay for $1, and it would end at $7,000 or $8,000. I mean, it was just a crazy market. But that was how things were at the time. What did I was supposed to go back to something. Oh, we'll go back to beanies, I assume, later.
Let's stick with this for a second because I'm curious, man. In this hobby, I'm a sports card guy, and there's a lot of sports card people watching, and we notice other trends come and go over the period of time that we're in the hobby. You mentioned Beanie Babies. You mentioned Pogs to me the other night. Pogs was something that came and went. What I want to know, and what I think some of the audience wants to know, Joel, is what knowledge or what your experience and knowledge based on living through these trends and being in business with these trends. What should we know about today? What kind of warnings, if any, would you have for people today who might be getting caught up in other trends? I don't want to call Pokemon a trend because I don't think it's a trend. I think it's a trend that'll last 100 years. But what should we be on the lookout for when the next trend does come along and it kind of starts to infiltrate the card shops and card shows and that sort of thing?
Well, I got to tell you, we made money in Magic the Gathering and Pokemon. And to give you a sidebar on Magic the Gathering, I never played the game. One of my employees played, so he would host little tournaments in our 500 square foot store. But I learned how to buy Magic cards. I remember going to Milwaukee to one of the first, I don't think it was called Comic-Con, but it was something like that, where I came with $10,000 in my pocket. And it was in the building connected to the old Mecca Arena where the Bucks used to play. Somehow I ended up in the old Mecca Arena with a line of like 30, 40 people to sell me their Magic collection. And I ran out of money in an hour, and it was like a Saturday. You couldn't restock, and I didn't know it was going to be that big of a deal. But I was livid because, here I am buying first edition cards. I thought it had died. I thought it was done. And then I hear in the last couple of years, there's a lot of big money investors buying these graded Magic cards now that I used to have. And I hear the first edition Pokemon that I used to have are just through the roof now. In fact, yesterday I had dinner with my nephews who are like 11 and 13. And I brought them a stack of baseball, hockey, football cards that I had lying around the house. And one of my nephews liked them, and the other one says, I only want Pokemon cards. I don't care about other cards. Yeah. So I guess these trends have really bounced back in the last few years to the point where there's real investors buying these cards for long-term investment. Speaking of poker, I think his name is David Williams. He finished second in the World Series a few years ago or several years ago. He is a big Magic the Gathering collector who buys high-end older cards that are graded, I believe, by PSA. So there are people out there that are investing in these, and they expect as they dry up, they'll become more and more valuable.
Yeah, we see it a lot now that the Black Lotus card can sell for $250,000 in a PSA 10. So it's big money right now, the Magic stuff. Just like the first edition Pokemon. We had that Jeff Wolf of Iconic Auctions just sold that PSA 10 first edition Charizard for $220,000 a couple weeks ago. So
both those cards, I probably had at 20, 30, 40, 50 each. I mean, you never thought about it. So
I'm sure you did. All right, I want to go back to some comments, and I got another question for you. So I want to say to Randall G, welcome to the show, the legend Joel Alpert. I love it, Joel. You are a legend. who a bunch of guys talking. Here we go. Darcy, welcome to the show, my friend. Good to see you. Matt Rath says, who are some of the best athletes and the worst that you've worked with? Can you share a couple names like that?
Oh, let's see. I don't want to. Some of these people I still work with. Obviously, I've managed Bobby Hull now for 8 years. Bobby's wonderful. He loves being with the people. He enjoys the business. It's given him something to do over the years, outside of hockey. Bad experiences. I got in a large fight with former Chicago Blackhawk, 2-time Stanley Cup champion goaltender Corey Crawford's agent, literally last summer, who was not honoring a contract, and left me on the hook, for a loss. Just a guy who came in and changed the rules of autograph signing, wanted to rewrite the wheel. I've had autograph guests over the years that they think I'm lying to them. They have somebody counting for them, and their count's a little different. And then I've had times we did the first signing with Floyd Money Mayweather ever many years ago. He now signs much more often. Where the morning of the signing, Floyd messaged us or called us and said, "You're charging for my autograph? I don't want kids spending their allowance on the autograph." And we had to give everybody who bought a ticket in advance their autographs for free. And he still charged us for the 1,000 autographs we did that day. He had a person counting. We had a person counting. And at the end, we were off by like 2 or 3 autographs, and they were arguing with us about it. And Floyd's a fantastic guy. He is the greatest show I've ever worked with. He talked nonstop. He took a 2-hour autograph signing and made it last 6. He told stories, loved to talk boxing. He did promotion videos for us. He was everything as advertised. But I just thought it was funny when we're arguing on a $75,000 deal, and we're arguing over $150 or $225. Yeah. As a guy who promotes athletes, I've always said, you know what, we're not going to argue over that. If we owe you 3 or 5 autographs, we're going to give it to you. It's not worth hurting future business. I'm sure I've had some nightmare stories, and I just can't think of them right now. But
well, that's all right. That's all right. We don't need to tarnish anybody's reputation here. But appreciate those. I want to welcome Amanda Alpert Knight. She says that Brother Joel, you are the best. Welcome to the show, Amanda. Paul Cashman says that Pogs need to have a renaissance PSA slab. Nice. You know what? I could see it happening down the road at some point, right? Business 124. Welcome to the show, Business 124. Thanks for enjoying it. And Joel Jacob says, where can we go to find Bobby Hull appearances? I would love to meet him one day. So how do people find out when and where Bobby is signing? Or do you just sort of assume he's signing this weekend somewhere anyway, because he's so active?
Jacob's pulling our chain. Jacob flew in from St. Louis a couple weeks ago to help me run Bobby Hull's Funko Pop signing. Funko made a Bobby Hull in their Legends edition this year. And Jacob actually flew in and helped me with that. But the truth is AM Sports Marketing Group on Facebook announces all the signings Bobby does. Bobby will sign through the mail through my company. You can contact me through there and find out pricing. But Bobby's available. And anybody in the Chicago area that knows of a restaurant or Indiana or a promoter that wants to bring Bobby in, you look me up and we'll get it done. Bobby loves to be out. Obviously, we're under different times now, so it's not as easy as it usually is. But we're still doing what we can to hustle.
All right, cool. Matt says that he loves his Bobby Funko. That's pretty cool. And okay, so Garrett, new sub here for Lethbridge. Well, welcome, Garrett. Nice to have you. It says maybe pertaining more to hockey, but is there a reason why you rarely see some players' autographs on cards such as Ovechkin and Malkin? I mean, as far as I know, either they don't want to do it or they charge more than Upper Deck maybe wants to pay, which I don't think would be the case, but you never know. Joel, do you have any insight into why players like that, you don't see their autographs on cards? I think it's going to be compared to whom, though. Like, you're talking about A-list players here. So compared to the, third level rookies in the rookie year, definitely not as many. But Ovechkin, I still see his autograph out there, and Malkin as well. Anything to add to that, Joel?
Yeah, I think most of the players want to work with Upper Deck. They maybe don't like the number they're giving them. I think Upper Deck actually pays players very strongly for their autograph. So I don't think that should ever be an issue unless a player's dreaming. Some players have their autograph rights exclusive with companies, and maybe that company holds them back from the Upper Deck deal. I've always, either my players let me handle their autograph deals with the card companies, or I let them do it on their own, because there's no reason to turn down, as I call it, free money. Upper Deck sends you a box of card and you get a check in the mail a few months later. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah.
So I think, maybe there's some players. I mean, think about Topps cards, back over the years. There's been players, and you probably can name some, I can't think of them right now, who didn't have Topps cards for many years because they wouldn't sign the release for whatever reason.
Yeah. Back in the day, for sure. We do. Oh, there we go. Hat-trick Heroes, welcome to the show. Tim says PSA does slab Pogs. They're actually pretty cool little holders. Yeah, and to come to think of it, I think I have seen them before, and they are kind of nice little units when they're slabbed. Darcy wants to know, have you had any involvement with Michael Jordan over the years?
It's funny. Right now I live like about a mile away from his old house, which he has on the market now. In fact, I finally drove my wife there a few months ago to show her the outside 23 gate, and we took pictures, and there was a security car sitting right inside, but the house has been for sale for years. Michael doesn't live here anymore. You would think, being a gambler who played in poker home games over the years, that I would have had some experience with Michael. I had friends that were friends with Michael, friends that golfed with Michael. Chris Chelios, one of my clients, is best friends with Michael still to this day. Somehow I have met Michael only at a couple of Upper Deck luncheons over the years where we weren't allowed to ask for autographs. Back then, we didn't carry cameras with us like everybody has a camera now, so I never got a picture. But I met him a couple times, and that was it. I maybe should have hustled a little more to try to get into some of their card games. I understand they played very strange games, like Indian poker, where you put a card on your head and you would know what they had, and they played between the sheets, and just pure gambling games for silly money. But I wish I would have back then. I could have afforded to sit in Michael's games, but I never got the invite, and I never pursued it that much.
All right. Foul 5-ball, welcome to the show. He still has his binder full of Pogs and Slammers, or she for that matter. Steve Elmore, welcome to the show. Good to see you. Paul can invest PSA Pogs. Yeah, right. Oh, Legion. Thanks, Legion. Well, Legion wants to remind everybody to hit that thumbs up button on the YouTube video, guys. I greatly appreciate that, Legion. Thank you so much. All right, so Joel, I want to go back to autographs for a second, because you mentioned earlier that you went into the frame shop, and the guy had a stack of 100 Joe Montanas, 100 Elways, 100 Dan Marinos, and right away you said to yourself, "There's no way these guys signed this many. These must be fake." I want to know, that was early on in the industry. You obviously were perturbed by this. You didn't think it was a good thing. Tell us more about that. How did you know that they were fake, and what, if anything, did you do about it at the time?
I did nothing. I just stopped buying from the guy. I pulled all of his inventory out of my stores. I took the losses. Customers that came back with stuff, I gave them their money back. Obviously, we had a lot of sales that I had no way to trace the customers. We had a mall store in the 90s. Shopping malls were, the thing. People would come in and whatever. But I started dealing in more certified autographs. Superstar Greetings was an early company that did Sammy Sosa and a few other players, and I became big customers of theirs. Steiner. I remember when Walter Payton passed, they had, they bought from they did signings with him the last year of his life. Walter knew he had short time left to live, and I bought a lot of stuff. Funny, but not funny sidebar. Sorry, I used the word funny incorrectly, but you'll understand. Upper Deck had done a 2-card edition called Football Heroes. They came in a screw-down holder that had 2 cards, and one of them was signed by Walter, and the other was just the Football Hero cover card. And they had like 800 of them left, and I had been trying to buy them for years and years and years. And my friend ran into Matt Suey's wife. Matt Suey was the tailback for Walter Payton all those years. Won the Super Bowl with him. And Matt's wife said, "Walter probably has a week or 2 left to live." And I called Upper Deck when I heard this, and I said, "How much for all these 2-card sets?" And the guy goes, "How about $35 each?" And I said, "Ship them on out to me." And as you can imagine, a few weeks later, they were selling for 100, 150 each. I think they're now 200 or 300 each. But unfortunately, we don't want people to pass away, but it's also part of the autograph business.
Yeah.
If you want me to talk about something that I think is kind of interesting and a big concern of mine, and I know this might rub people the wrong way, but there's a lot of these Facebook groups that are taking off, and I'm sure they have them in the trading card field.
Oh, yes.
But the autograph groups, a lot of them have these rules that when somebody passes away, you can't buy or sell their autographs for a few weeks. And actually, this will bring us into a topic that I want to talk about tonight with you about counterfeits on the internet. And I'm not really talking Facebook, because believe it or not, I think Facebook groups regulate the counterfeits, where if you list something that's fake, you're going to have 50 people commenting, that's not real, that's not real. And they're not saying that because they're greedy. They're saying that because they're not real. But unfortunately, eBay and Amazon, two of the biggest marketplaces in the world, and there's a few of these other pop-ups that are now growing, and I don't know the names of them off the top of my head, but they're just loaded with these counterfeits that have become out of control issue in the industry. But these Facebook groups have this policy. Bart Starr passed away recently, and they said you're not allowed to sell Bart Starr for a month. And my theory is we're regulating autographs to make sure they're real. eBay's not regulating them. Why send the people that want to make an impulse buy of a Bart Starr autograph to an unregulated marketplace when we could be making sure they're buying real stuff on Facebook? And their theory is oh, well, it's out of respect for the dead. And my theory is Bart Starr signed autographs for money his entire life. Muhammad Ali signed autographs for money his entire life. Everybody knows everybody, eventually expires. So I just feel, why not let us regulate them? And if the prices are too high, people probably won't buy it.
Yeah, I want to jump in for 1 sec, because we've got some comments that are like right on this topic here. But before we do that, so hold that thought, Joel. But Brian says just tuned in, and it's the Unabomber. That's you, Joel. That's you. But here, this is the question that I want to put up. Dennis actually, he asks a great question that you've already started to answer. He says, "Let's hear your opinion of fakes on eBay and what we can do to fix the problem." Well, you just proposed the solution. Have these Facebook groups open up their policies so that people can buy and sell rookie autographs of players who recently deceased, so that, like you said, people aren't having to go to eBay to buy that impulse autograph. That might be one of the solutions to that issue. Legion says he agrees. There's so many fakes on eBay. Ziggy's enjoying the story. But can you just, for Dennis's question, what else do you think, Joel? I mean, you've been in this industry long enough. You must have some ideas of what else can be done to kind of help people navigate and avoid fake autographs on eBay. Like, what are the options here?
First off, let's give a shout out to Dennis Liscombe. Dennis is in Niagara Falls, a big Blue Jays fan, a big Roberto Alomar, and I can't think of the other guy, Jose Bautista. Does that sound like a big Toronto player? But he also is a collector of 1966 Batman, the original television show characters, which is one of my specialties. Dennis and I have swapped autographs for years now. He's a really good guy. But here's the thing. My bread and butter is still eBay sales. Obviously, Amazon does okay. Other sites that that leech off my listings, sportsmemorabilia.com. I can't even think of the name of a couple of the sites I appear on now. But you understand, the business is still the most customers in the world. And I'm a huge eBay fan, except for the fact that I've been arguing with eBay for years about the counterfeit autographs on there. And I will tell you, Steve Grad from Pawn Stars, Steve Grad from Beckett Authentication Services, Steve Grad, who was a guest on your show before, has been a friend of mine for many years, as we both have Chicago roots. And Steve Grad used to actually have somebody at eBay who would contact him and say, hey, this autograph doesn't look right. And Steve would give him a quick opinion on it, and it was fake. They'd pull it off. Well, guess what? They eliminated that guy's position, and eBay is an unregulated marketplace for autographs now. Before I give examples, I'm going to tell everybody, make sure your autographs are genuine before you buy. If they're certified by Beckett Authentication Services, they become the #1 authenticators in the industry, in my opinion. There are other authentication services that are trusted, such as JSA, PSA DNA. Obviously, Fanatics has become one of the biggest players in the autograph industry now. They have more players under contract probably than anybody. I know I'm forgetting about some. Mill Creek has their own hologram. Press Pass Collectibles. Some really good industry people. Scott Malum and the great Kyle Bell. Smile when I say great. I told Kyle to watch tonight. I'm sure he isn't because he's traveling. But Jeff was watching. Love you,
Yeah.
Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
And Jeff's from Iconic Auctions, one of the big players in the auction business, and has some amazing memorabilia. I mean, you just unbelievable between him and Kyle what they have. But eBay's just an unregulated marketplace. So if it's not certified by one of those, one trick, it's $10. Beckett Authentication Services will give you a signature review. It's right on their autograph website, where you could send them an eBay link or a picture of an item, and their experts will look at it. Sometimes you get a response in an hour. Sometimes it takes a day. It's incredibly fast. But, if you're making a $500 purchase of something not certified on eBay, even though eBay will let you return it for up to 60 days, and there's some loopholes for longer if it fails authentication, the truth is for $10, spend the money. But let's talk about some examples I've seen of autograph fraud going rampant on eBay. And the greatest example I could have is the day Muhammad Ali passed away. These me and Scott Malin were two of the top buyers of Muhammad Ali autographs for years. And Muhammad Ali prices really were high for many years because his autograph went from a beautiful little autograph to he had like electric shock in his hand to sign autographs at many of his last signings, which was too bad. My friend who actually worked the signings said that it was very sad, but the autographs were humongous and didn't look natural. So his autograph prices for the vintage stuff had gone up, and we were both competing to buy everything that came real on eBay that wasn't certified. So Muhammad passes away, and there must have been a group ready for this day, because out of nowhere they were listing photos that never were seen before of Muhammad Ali. And there was all these older guys, especially in the 80s and 90s. There was like 3 or 4 photos that you would see at every signing. It wasn't like there was a million different photos of him, but these guys printed photos and had fake signatures on them, and they came up with their own holograms and certification, and they were selling 8x10 photos for $99 and 5x7s for like $49. And here we are. We used to pay $200-300 raw for a Muhammad Ali 8x10 because it would sell for $500. And it just didn't stop, and it just went out of control. And we're trying to contact eBay, and it turned out that Muhammad Ali, the people that owned his name, I forget the name of the company, they actually went to eBay and got these all removed, and then they came back a week later under different accounts, and eBay just lost track. But that's just a small part. The Batman 66 autographs, when I search for these guys, because I'm always looking to buy the characters from the old TV show, the Adam West, Burt Wards, these incredible names, Cesar Romero. I know I'm missing some because I'm old and forget. But people are faking these now. And like a guy like Cesar Romero, his autograph isn't worth much unless it's on a Joker photo from Batman 66. And a nice one will sell for $300, and with the Joker name will sell for over $400. But these guys have these photos on there that were never signed at all the signings Caesar did over the year, and they're completely fake autographs, and nothing is done. And when I search and I see these accounts that every week list 50, 60 different fake autographs, and they're selling Heath Ledgers for $200. And Heath Ledgers, as we all know, died tragically young. And his autograph, I mean, they just sold one on Star Wars Autograph Universe for charity. 16x20 of him from an obscure movie sold for like $1,600. It's a factory, and it's something that I've talked to eBay a dozen times about what can I do to make a difference. And another player in the industry who's tried to work with eBay, and one of the big shots, I should have mentioned their name in real autographs, TriStar, Jeff Rosenberg. He's tried to work with eBay for years, and they keep saying, yeah, autograph fakes aren't allowed, and then they just let it go. They just commission. And they've started in the last month a watch authentication and now a sneaker authentication. And I keep thinking to myself, maybe one of these days they're going to do the right thing, and they're going to hire the Beckett or one of the other companies to start reviewing autographs a little bit and trying to pull these off, and maybe the people get discouraged, and it'll make it a fair marketplace. When people are selling Muhammad Ali 8x10s for 100 and I'm trying to sell them for 500, I can only say so much to try to convince the customers this is real and this is fake. But most of the customers I never see. It's millions of people marketplace.
Right. Your friend Jacob says if the price sounds too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. I think that's a lesson to live by for sure. I want to go back. Hang on one second. I want to go back and I want to have a couple of comments here. Ziggy says, Joel makes a great argument that you can't make in a text conversation on Facebook. I would agree with you on this argument. And Billy Celio from Upper Deck says, note to self, if I see Joel at work, find out what he's buying. Joel's a great guy, great guest. Watch his Ask Joel Anything show too. So there's some endorsements for you from Billy who works at Upper Deck. And now Ziggy has this comment here. He says, and guys, if you're into sports cards, Ziggy has a channel on YouTube where he does a daily sports card update, what's going on in the hobby. And as he recently posted, it's the longest consecutive running show on YouTube hobby-wise. So check that out. But he brings up this new authentication company, Joel. It's called Michael Baker Authentication. And I've heard a little bit about them recently, and they were set up at the Chantilly show this past weekend. What these, if you don't know, Joel, what these guys are doing is they're looking at PSA and BGS slabbed cards, and they're assessing the card within the slab. And I think they have a few different levels of stickers, let's say a gold, a silver, and a bronze. And maybe the gold is for very strong for the grade, and maybe the silver is for average for the grade, and the bronze is for maybe weak for the grade. What do you do you have an opinion on that type of service being offered, or have you heard of these guys? What are your thoughts on this?
It's news to me, but I'm sure they have a good intentions and a nice future if it works out. Though I'm involved with slabbing tens of thousands of cards a year because I'm a submission center for Beckett. So anybody needs anything slabbed, contact me. For autographs, I don't do grading, but I'm one of those that I'm not so big on the grading. I think grading is important on the older cards. A Bobby Hull rookie, a Hank Aaron rookie, a Willie Mays rookie. That's kind of cool. I know PSA and Beckett do offer to grade and authenticate the autograph. So it is a service that's available if you want to do the dual service through either of those companies. If a third party is doing it and they're trusted, good for them. And I think a lot of people will want to do it. You could even do it with more modern rookies like 80 stars, the Robin Younts, the George Bretts, Paul Molitors. That's kind of neat. And it's a neat addition to have your card graded inside. Obviously, PSA and Beckett will both grade the autograph, for a small fee on top of the authentication. I haven't seen the boost in the industry for the graded autographs. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like if you have an autograph that's 10 graded, it's not like a 10 graded card where, people go bonkers for it. I think people are, I think it's, and I never think it's going to be something that catches on. But when I get a Mickey Mantle baseball that gets a 10 grade, I'm going to get a few $100 extra for it. It might just take longer to sell.
Yeah. So, okay, fair enough. You're not really tuned into what's going on with Michael Baker Authentication, and that's fine. And Ziggy, I saw you talking about this particular service, and I haven't really looked into it much. It's not something that really interests me. I'm happy with the original opinion on the card for as far as a PSA or a Beckett grading goes. So, I think it's one of these wait and see. Let's see how they do. And as Joel said, if they have good intentions and they are consistent, what's wrong with it? I'm not gonna have an issue with what they're doing if they have integrity and they have consistency. But those are two big ifs, and I say that without knowing these guys or the people behind the brand. But if they are in fact people of integrity and they do have a consistent application of their standards to these cards, why not? Perhaps they can have cards that have their stickers will realize premium, similar to the way PWCC cards that have their special designations do achieve premiums as well. Stephen Collectibles says that he agrees Beckett Authentication Services is number one. So there's a vote for that. Matt Raff has had a few questions. Matt, I do see them and we are going to get to them. So Matt had a question earlier, Joel, where he wanted to know, how many clients does AM Sports Marketing have? And then he wants to know, and who are some of your clients that you work with besides Bobby Hull?
Okay, well, tomorrow I see Ed Belfour, Chris Chelios, and Bobby Hull. They're all doing a private signing for me. Ed's in town promoting his liquor brand, Belfour Spirits, which I believe is taking off these days. So good for Ed on that. So those three guys all are under my umbrella. Jeremy Roenick, who actually texted me during the show. We heard a rumor he was in Chicago, but he's not. So we were going to invite him to join us. And Tony Esposito are really my legends under my thing. There's a few other players I do marketing for, but they're not as active. Current players, Andrew Shaw is really about the only active guy I have left. Most of my players have retired. We had a great run. We won 3 Stanley Cups in 5 or 6 seasons here in Chicago. You go through the list of players, Marion Hossa, Duncan Keith, Brent Seabrook, all worked under my umbrella, some of them for shorter times than others. But Dave Bolin and Brian Bickle, Brian Bickle, for those of you in Canada, is on Skating with the Stars right now, along with Chris Versteeg. So I'm watching that, and Chris is one of my best friends in the world, but I told him Brian's going to win the Skating with the Stars. You know what the show is, obviously. We don't have it here in the States, so I have to try to stream it online. But all these guys have worked for me over the years. Bickle and Boland scored the 2 goals in 17 seconds to beat Boston in 2013 at the end of Game 6 to go from a 1-2 deficit to a 3-2 win. So we did a great addition of a few thousand photos. The photo file made a photo of the 2 goals together. And the Blackhawks were so impressed, they had me sell them at the games during Christmas, which was, unbelievable when you have, hundreds of people lined up to buy these photos at your table. And suddenly business is much easier when you're at a Blackhawks game selling merchandise. Yeah. So, but that's really been about it. I've worked in the other sports over the years. I talked about in the 90s, I working with football players. I get hired from time to time to run signings when people can't make it. When Aaron Rodgers won the Super Bowl, our friend from Mill Creek and called me up and said, "Can you go to Green Bay and do a signing with Aaron Rodgers?" And as a Packer fan, how do I turn that down? And let's tell a funny sidebar about the story. Aaron Rodgers walks into the banquet room to do the signing, and he's with his buddy, and he goes, "Hey, you guys like Bieber?" And we look at him like he's nuts. Like, what? Justin Bieber? And he's like, "Yeah, my buddy just went to the concert last night. So I assume you guys are all Bieber fans too." So all the stories you hear about Aaron Rodgers being a prankster, I believe they're true. I believe he's a funny guy, and I think he's the best quarterback around. I know Brady's won more, but Aaron's just so consistent on the field.
All right. Matt has another question. He wants to know, do you prefer JSA or Beckett and we're talking about autograph authentication, and why?
Okay. First off, I'm not going to talk bad on anybody, but I believe Beckett has the best eyes in the industry. When you have Steve Grad, Brian Sobrero, and several other authenticators who were all on the street in the 90s, hounding autographs as a hobby, very little business. They were doing it just for their own collections. If you don't know, Steve Grad has an incredible Star Wars collection. Harrison Ford is his favorite celebrity of all time. He has a tattoo of Harrison on his arm that he has a picture of him standing next to Harrison showing off. But, he has hundreds of Harrison Ford's autograph. He's out there on the street. He was getting these guys in person for years, and he learned what the autographs look like. They learned differences in autographs. Jimmy Spence and Steve started PSA DNA together. I think Spence started it and Steve came in and perfected it. And I believe that the 5 or 6 guys they have looking at autographs are the best. That said, there are good people at the other companies. There might be some people I don't necessarily approve of, but that's my own opinion that we don't need to get into. But you know what? I think they all try hard. And I'm PSA. If somebody comes to me and says, "Oh, it failed PSA, I'll take it to JSA." I'm like, if these guys don't like it, I don't believe it's real. Yeah. And that's the end of the story.
All right, cool. This user says, "I didn't know I could pay to authenticate an eBay listing. Thanks for that." Yeah, that's a great service that they offer. And Steve has talked about that on the Beckett Live Presents YouTube channel, which he does with Eric Norton. They call it Grad School. Comes on a couple times a week. So Steve has definitely mentioned that before. I think it's a great service as well. Hold on one sec. Here, I want you to talk about this instead, Joel. Because Jeff he says, "Our Facebook group's more reputable than eBay for autograph purchases." He's not on Facebook much. That's why he asked. So you talked about it before, but just hammer this point home again. What your thoughts are on Facebook versus eBay?
Okay, I don't sell much on Facebook myself. My business does have a shopping cart, and it gets very little business. Even though I have 11,000 likes on my business page, the Facebook shopping carts for the businesses don't work very well. But there are these groups that if you list stuff for sale, there are buyers out there. You go to, like I'm members of all the Green Bay Packer and Chicago Bears groups because I work, within those fields. And these people want stuff. I'm in a lot of Blackhawk groups. When I did a signing with Jeremy Roenick a few months ago, I posted it online, and people, sent me in 50, 60 items in a 2-week window, so that was amazing. Um, the Facebook groups are going to regulate themselves better. That doesn't mean everything is real. Make sure you do your homework first. If you see people commenting that they question the autograph, that's a bad sign. That said, Facebook is good, but there's a few tricks you got to watch out for, and this is very important, especially the trading card people too. I learned the hard way. Somebody, before the Michael Jordan boom, which happened in the last 6 months, somebody had like a PSA 1 for sale for, $300-$400, which I think at the time they were going for 500 or 600. Now I assume they're well over 1,000. And they sent me an invoice through Facebook to pay for it. And I did it, and I should have noticed something was wrong because Facebook was charging me a fee. And Facebook has a thing in Messenger where you could message somebody to pay you money, and it's friends and family money. So if you use a credit card, you pay a fee, but it comes right out of your PayPal. Well, I learned the hard way that because the person was fraud, that these people are tricking you into paying them, so you have no recourse at all. I disputed my credit card, and Facebook closed my payment accounts for my business and everything. And I had to go through like 14 people before somebody finally said, we'll let you off this time, but if it happens again, we're not doing it. So you are responsible for that. You have to make sure you're paying PayPal goods and services. Do not be tricked into the friends and family unless you know the person well. And even, that's technically against PayPal rules, but
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the autograph groups have this, but the sports card groups definitely do. It's this whole vouching system where, before you send money to somebody, you ask for vouchers in the group, and if people vouch for them, then you're going to be good to go. And it works out pretty well there. Let's keep going though. Ziggy, another good point. He says he's speaking to you here, Joel. He says, I heard that there really aren't many federal resources prosecuting counterfeiting today. So without the penalty of prison, people will continue to fake autos and defraud the system. Speak to that because you've seen so much over the years. What have federal authorities done, and what are they today? What are they not doing? Like, do they not care? Are they still involved? What are you hearing? What are you seeing?
Okay, well, let me start out. The guy who was selling me the fake autographs in the early 90s, he ended up getting arrested in the first foul ball, Operation Foul Ball. He went to jail for 1 year and a day. They added a month to his sentence because he rode a lawnmower off the jail property. Just a story that I couldn't believe that was true. But they actually cared back in the 90s, and they did stuff. And the ringleader of the group was one of my closest friends and a good customer of mine who would buy unsigned merchandise from me. He'd call me up and go, I need 1,000 Michael Jordan Wings posters. I mean, I'm not, I can make $2 each for making 2 phone calls. I'm going to do it. And I used to party with him in Vegas back then. He told me years later about all the inside stuff that happened and how the FBI set them up. And, later they set each other up, and whatever. A lot of the guys went to jail. They did something about it. There was another ring a few years ago where I had another friend go to jail. And, it's too bad that they don't take this seriously and actively. I mean, the FBI's got so much on their plate. Obviously, the world changed in 2001 where, they suddenly had to start worrying about things they never were,
Right.
dealing with before. And it seems like the feds don't care right now. It's like, what, they had a big bust in Michigan earlier in the year where they raided an art dealer who was also involved with autographs. But they're looking for raids that are millions of dollars, and they're not looking at the people who are making $500 or $1,000 a week on eBay. It's not enough money for their time, and that's a problem. And I'd love for the FBI to call me up and go, "Hey, you want to come work for us, and we'll have a division that looks into these and makes an effort." The fake holograms, and I don't want to disappoint people, but there was issues with some major companies having their holograms and certification faked. Now defunct, but Steiner Sports was one of them, where I saw a bunch of Muhammad Ali gloves that weren't passing back then. Steve and guys were with PSA DNA. They were failing these Steiner gloves. And I tried to find out what was going on. And I was told by Steiner at the time, if you want to buy it, be sure it's real, buy it from us direct. And I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't solve the problem. You buy something from Steiner. If you need money, you want to sell it. That's not fair to the secondhand market. If they would have told me the truth, I would have addressed it properly, but they were worried everybody was going to return all the real stuff they bought from them over the years. So, if something's too good to be true, even if it's certified, look into it. These guys are trying to counterfeit even the major authenticators. They're trying to counterfeit everything they can. And, you gotta do a little homework with everything you buy.
Yeah, for sure.
And listen, we were talking before about PayPal. When you pay goods and services, PayPal protects you for up to 60 days. If you find a reason that you've been defrauded, they will let you return it. And if the seller is unresponsive, they will rule on it. I like the vouch system. We have that in the autograph groups too. But the truth is, as a seller myself, I tell everybody, you could pay me goods and services. I'm not worried about it. I actually offer, now that I have a new credit card provider, I could bill people right on my website, and it sends them a bill to their email, and they safely and securely pay online, and they have then protection from their credit card. Yeah. I don't want people to be losing sleep over it. If you're making money, you should be able to afford 3% fee. If you can't, add it on. Tell them, if you want a $400 item, pay $12 more.
Yeah, no, I hear you. All right, let's keep going. Your friend Dennis says Joel is my go-to for info and thoughts on autographs. I mean, that's a nice endorsement right there for sure. And Randall says Steve Grad is top shelf for sure. And I'm not an autograph guy, but I certainly trust Steve and his opinion. So that's nice to hear that as well. Matt says, when are Jacob, you and me going to Charlie Gitto's? I don't know what that means.
Charlie Gitto's in St. Louis is my favorite pasta in the world. They have this pink cognac pasta that on my show I rave about. I will be going with Jacob. Matt's in the doghouse right now, so we won't talk about that. Can I interrupt? I need to do a quick shout out for a friend who's watching who probably won't comment.
Yeah, go for it.
But my good friend Randall Miller in New York said he would stay up to watch tonight. Randall's an attorney who is the biggest Bobby Hull photograph collector in the world. Randall probably has over 1,200 different photos, all signed by Bobby Hull. He's become good friends with Bobby, and he flies in from New York about once a month to see Bobby and me. I'll be seeing him next week. But Randall is celebrating a birthday tomorrow, so we want to wish a happy birthday to Randall. He's just a great guy, a good collector, and he's been doing this for many years, and I'm just so happy to have people like that who support Bobby and are part of the industry. So.
That's nice. Well, shout out to Randall. Happy birthday to Randall, you said, yes?
Yes, Randall Miller.
Randall Miller. Happy birthday to you, Randall. Okay, going back to some comments and questions, because some of these are for you. Joel, Ziggy says that if you're interested in the Mike Baker authentication, Carlos had a video the other night and talked about it. So we're referring to a YouTube channel that's called Because I'm Carlos. Check it out. Great videos. Really smart guy. Does a great job with that. Paul says, I have a fondness for the Blackhawks. Won a couple of playoff pools with them. There you go. Little Chicago love right there. And then Amazed says, Joel, who is your Holy Grail autograph? Do you have any experiences with Beatles autographs?
Okay, I had some Beatles autographs in the early 90s. No idea if they were real or not now, because we didn't have the authenticators like we did back then. If the people are watching who bought them, I'm sorry if they're not. But we live and learn, and I went through the process just like everybody, and I'm open about it at least. That's a big deal. So anyway, excuse me, I'm dying here. 1 second.
Sports Cards live from Joel's car here tonight.
If this is the end, thanks for the memories. Anyway, that's the downside of being an addictive cigar smoker. Like I said, I've been sober 31 years. It's the one vice I still have that I can't break. But anyway, Holy Grail autographs. I've been a Thurman Munson collector for many years. As a kid, Thurman, even though I was in Chicago, Thurman was my favorite player. And when he passed away, I was heartbroken. I remember in the early 80s, in Sports Collectors Digest, those who don't know, was the Bible for buying cards and memorabilia back in the day. It was a newspaper that came out every week that was as big as a daily newspaper, and it was 200 pages of ads and 20 pages of articles. and I was an advertiser in there for many years in the 90s. But somebody out of Massachusetts had a Thurman Munson letter where he basically said to so-and-so, what are you going to do with all these cards? You must be my number one baseball card fan. Your friend always, Thurman Munson. And I had my parents buy it for me for like $125, and they thought it was outrageous. This is in the 80s. And in fact, a sidebar to that story, as I was dealing in baseball cards in the 90s, my father one night at dinner is like, I want to see you pay your bills down the road with these baseball cards, just got sort of harassing me, my commodity broker father. As a sidebar to that story, maybe 10, 12 years later, my father was a little short to buy a house in Arizona. And as I gave him $35,000 to finish the purchase of his house, I said to him, I want you to remember this is baseball card money. So I got to get the last shot in there. So
well, nice you to help out your dad too. Ziggy reminds people, hit that thumbs up button, guys. Thank you so much, Ziggy. Paul has a question. What do you make of the recent trend of rookie athlete autographs going from an actual signature at the start of the season to the end of the season where it's a squiggle or a quick little check mark? What do you think of the quality of today's players' autographs?
Oh, it's going downhill, and it's starting before their rookie year now, because guys in the minor leagues and in junior hockey are getting hounded for autographs like never before. People are, trying to get in early so they can make the big money when they make the show. But the autographs have gone to nothing. And managing Bobby Hull and Tony Esposito, two of the nicest autographs you'll ever see. I mean, Bobby Hull's autograph has changed a little over the years, but here's a funny story. Just a few weeks ago, Bobby did a signing at Schwartz Sports Memorabilia, and the same day, I had Mike Hartenstein from the '85 Bears there, and Kevin Butler from the '85 Bears was there. Kevin Butler signed 800 autographs in an hour. Mike Hartenstein, who signs a long, beautiful autograph, signed 600 autographs in 4 hours. Bobby Hull, in that same 4 hours, signed 125 autographs. And it just goes to show how everything is immaculate, and you could read every letter. And Bobby always says, good thing my name wasn't Zuminski or some real long name, But it stinks. The guys are consistent. Like I previously said, Marian Hossa worked for me for the first 3 or 4 years he was in Chicago. Marian has a crap autograph. It's like 2 lines in an 81. Yeah. And it's looked like he said, since his rookie year, and I looked at the old autographs, and that's what it was. It's too bad, but, it was nice when I was paying Marian Hossa for a 2-hour signing where it was whatever he signed in that 2 hours, we would, that's what we got. And he could sign, a couple thousand autographs in 2 hours. And, we definitely got our money worth. So.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep on going. Canner Collect says it better late. Hey, well, welcome, Canner. I agree. Better late than never. Says that Michigan FBI raid was here in my county. So you heard about that in the news, I'm sure. Peter wants to say Joel held my hand through getting I believe a Tim Horton autograph authenticated. Very reassuring for a newbie to the process. That's really cool to hear.
That was just a couple weeks ago.
Randall G wants to wish your other buddy Randall a happy birthday. He also loves Bobby Hull. That's great. I'm not sure who this is, but he says, "Say It Ain't So, Joel." One of my favorite Weezer songs of all time is "Say It Ain't So." Just there's a sidebar for you. Garrett.
Say it ain't so, you're mine.
Joel, we're saving the singing till the end of the show, remember?
I break out in song when I get bored during my Astral Anything show.
There you go. Garrett, love getting old-time autos where you can read the whole name nice and clearly. Love vintage autograph, for sure, right? I hear you. Bobby Hull is 81, Tony Esposito is 77, and still every letter is legible, says Stevens Collectibles. Got to agree with that. I mean, it's true. Frank Mahovlich has a beautiful autograph. Maurice Richard, when he was live, a beautiful autograph. Those old guys took so much pride in their name. Steve Menzie says, I maintain that Bobby gives one of the best autograph experiences in the hobby. Yeah, I mean, he's somebody that is just happy to see people. Like you said earlier, Joel, he's always happy to just be out there talking to the people, meeting the people. And like you said, it gives him something to do. We're right here. Alex, your opinion on Dennis Rodman's inconsistent signature, maybe someone else helping him. What do you have to say about that?
Okay, let me sidebar here. Darren Prince, who's managed Dennis, I don't think he does anymore. He does still. Somebody told me he didn't, and I called Darren, and he said he did. Dennis Rodman is an old friend of mine. When I lived in Las Vegas from 2001 to 2004, Darren brought me on to be Dennis Rodman's babysitter in Vegas. I was the perfect candidate because I smoked cigars and I could stay up all hours of the day or night, and I was sober, so there was somebody sober to take care of the party. The stories are true. Dennis Rodman could party like a rock star. I know we're trying to keep clean here, but of all the stories I've heard of Dennis with drug abuse and stuff, I never saw him do any drugs. It was amazing. He would drink like a rock star, but I never saw it myself, and we partied many nights in Vegas. I love Dennis Rodman, the person. I think he's a good guy. I did do signings with Dennis during the 90s. Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman, we were fortunate to have worked with through one-on-one productions out of Peoria. We did publics with them. We did privates with them. Dennis, I don't think Dennis has anybody signing for him. I don't think that's happening. Dennis's autograph is based on Dennis's mood. Yeah. You get Dennis in a happy day, you're going to get a nice Dennis Rodman autograph. You get Dennis in a day he doesn't want to be there, you're going to get what you get. I don't believe Dennis is personally having anything counterfeited, though. I will stand behind that. That doesn't mean there aren't thousands of fake Dennis Rodman autographs out there. It's, part of the game.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, man, great. I want to just say to everybody, if you're watching on Facebook and your name doesn't come up, I can see Paul and some others telling you how to do that. I have it streaming on the bottom right now. If you go to streamyard.com/Facebook, click the big blue button. That way I can see your name. Joel can see your name. We'll know who you are, and it'll be just a bit more fun to interact with you. So go check that out, please. Dunkachino, want to say good evening to you. Thanks for tuning in. Adam Cormier, local buddy of mine, says Bobby Hull gives awesome autos and shares terrific stories, all around a great signer. That's nice to hear. We have here, cleanest autograph anyone will ever see is Jim Gantner. I'm not even sure who that is myself.
Wait a second. You don't know Jim Gantner, the old Brewers player?
I don't.
You've heard him before. You just slipped your mind. I think he was with the Brewers and Angels, maybe. I'm not sure.
I remember Ron Gant and Robin Yount.
No, Jim Gantner was in the 70s and 80s, I think. My cleanest autograph, one of the best ever, is Andre Dawson. He signs sideways, and it's beautiful. It looks like a work of art every time he signs. I'm sure Jim Gantner's the same way, but Andre is just amazing and consistent.
Right on. Trevor LeConte, hello to you. Welcome to the show. Troy Medina says, damn, these are the interviews that are needed. Great job again. Thank you, Troy. That is really good to hear. And that says a lot for my guest tonight, Joel Alpert. So thank you so much for that. And Adam says, Jay Lee, are you putting in a snipe for the Crosby Jambalaya tonight? That's a card that's selling tonight. You know it's on my watch list, Adam. You know it's on there. It's already pretty high. I got to think about it. I'm not sure. And I think it ends in probably around 25 minutes or so. 33 minutes. I got some time to think about it.
What's it at?
It's at $229.50.
Come on, big money. You can add a jambalaya. I don't even know what a jambalaya is. But I want it in your collection by morning.
We'll see. I'm still thinking about it. Why, Adam? Are you looking to pick it up? Let me know if you are. Maybe I'll back off. I don't know for sure though. We'll see. Dennis says, I love this channel. I will be watching all the time now. Well, that's music to my ears, Dennis. Thank you. It's always nice to convert some new viewers and subscribers. So much appreciated. Randall, thank you so much. Jim Gantner, only a Brewer, 76 to 92. Yeah, I mean, I watched baseball in the 80s and 90s, and it's just slipping my mind.
No, he was a hardworking, good player. He wasn't a superstar, but he was your guy who gave it his all. So
yeah, that's cool. Ed Burnett, welcome, says Harmon Killebrew has the cleanest auto. I mean, I'm sure he does, right? There's another guy from the 50s, 60s who took pride in his name.
Do you know what Harmon Killebrew's claim to fame for me was? I was at a show in Strongsville, Ohio, outside of Cleveland. And Harmon was an autograph guest that day, and he was there early during dealer setup. And I remember looking at Harmon thinking this guy was like third in home runs all time at that time. He was like 5'0", and he didn't look like a home run guy. But Harmon came into the room, and he looked at us and he said, "Did you hear A. Bartlett Giamatti passed away?" And that's how I found out about it. So I'll never forget that. Harmon was a nice guy, and another guy who signed a lot of autographs. But yeah, a beautiful autograph.
Jacob Richardson wants to know if Joel will be doing an After Dark show. So, Joel, he's talking about on Saturday nights after my regular episode of Sports Cards Live. I do a late night episode called After Hours. It's a much more relaxing episode. But I mean, maybe we'll see. We'll see if we'll bring Joel back in the future. I don't see why not.
He's actually talking about Ask Joel Anything, my Facebook show.
Oh, okay.
They used to be called After Dark. Now I call them After Death because I'm a kind of morbid person. But I appreciate you bringing me on tonight because I got put in Facebook jail for using a bad word to a person in a Facebook comment. So I'm off Facebook for 3 days. So my personal show won't be back till after midnight tomorrow. So.
All right, there you go. And here, I'm going to throw that up for everybody right there. Joel's show is called Ask Joel Anything. It has its own Facebook page. So go check it out, like that, and then you'll be notified when Joel goes live. And I'll warn you, it's the same as this. It's that exact same view that you're seeing right over there. There he is in his hoodie. You know, you can't really see who's talking to you. And he's in his car smoking his stogies. It's quite entertaining. I've watched a few of them lately. So check it out.
Can I talk about the history of that just for a minute here?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Pandemic started at governor's stay-at-home orders in Chicago, in Illinois. I walked out to my car one day to smoke a cigar, and I turned on to Facebook and I went live and I said, "Ask Joel Anything." And now, about 400 episodes later, in a matter of like 7 months, it's become a regular show. I like to joke. I have 6 or 7 regular viewers like Jacob who tune in all the time. And it's not, we talk about everything. And I, obviously I'm a professional poker player. I have a sports marketing company. I buy and sell autographs. I consider myself the world's first self-ordained atheist minister. I have a Father Joel Alpert's Atheist Life Church that I'm very proud of. Sorry if you don't agree with my views, but I'm very, very fond of them. And people come on and talk to me about anything. Political arguments and discussions are heated very much. I'm a liberal, like all you Canadians, whether you like it or not. But you know what? It's a fun thing, and it gives me something to do because we are, and you started your show around the same time where, it's nice to have a break from our day because, suddenly my schedule, without the signings, and I've lost probably 50, 60 signings in the last 7 months. There's not as much to do. So it's nice to take a break, and here's the Facebook community, and we can make new friends and talk. And, if you
for sure.
If you don't like me, turn it off.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot of fun doing these. And I think a lot of people are finding this new outlet, including myself and you. So it's a lot of fun. I've enjoyed doing it. Paul Cashman, great. Jeremy's in on the jambalaya. I'm out. I don't have Sports Cards Live money. Yeah, sure. Sports Cards Live costs me money. Trust me, it doesn't make me money, but it's a lot of fun. It's worth every penny. Since you're working, I may as well go after it. Yeah, we'll see if I get off the clock here soon enough. Dennis's favorite old-time auto is Hank Aaron, one of my PC. Yeah, I mean, I've seen his autograph is beautiful too. Definitely. Harmon is also the nicest guy ever with the nickname of Killer. That's yeah, for sure, right? Joel, what is the most unusual item you've seen autographed?
I mean, obviously, I'm not going to say who, but I have seen breast autographed before. That's an unusual item. I've had athletes get autographed that the people turned into tattoos on their arm. There's a picture on the AM Sports Marketing Group Facebook page, if you search long and hard, of a gentleman who had Bobby Hull sign his arm. He ran over to the tattoo parlor, and it's now part of his permanent body for life. I will tell a funny story about your fellow Canuck, Chris Versteeg, who a girl had his autograph tattooed on herself, and he was number 32 at the time. And, the autograph is a beautiful circle with the 32 in the middle. And I looked at her and I said, what if Chris changes numbers? And since then, he's worn number 10, he's worn number 23. But that was like his rookie year or maybe the second year. I'm like, oh, I guess she's a big fan. Unusual items. Bobby Hull signed a tennis ball once. I have no idea why. I posted that on my Facebook page. Bobby's probably autographed the most unusual items because people have had stuff that they just, it has a part of their life and they feel Bobby would be perfect on it. So I'm sure I've seen others, but.
I want to move on. Steve Menzie wants to say, man, can you even imagine the resale value on Joel's car after all those stogies being smoked in it? Right
Okay.
it's in the red. There is no resale value at this point.
Listen, we're going to auction it off as the studio for Ask Joel Anything.
Yeah.
So, and listen, I've done your show in the car here. I've done the grad school I was a guest on. Star Wars Autograph Universe had me on. And I do them all from the car, and this is where I'm comfortable. I don't have a podcast system at home. While Steve Menzie is here, let's give a plug to Steve Menzie. I know you did it the other night, but Bobby Hull is one of the two spokesmen, along with Andre Dawson, who we just talked about, for the Sports Card and Memorabilia Expo / Chicago Sports Spectacular virtual show next month. I don't have the exact date, so Steve, you can tune in and give us those dates.
I got him.
And Bobby Hull will be doing, there'll be a few items we'll be selling online of Bobby, and then Bobby will be doing virtual chats for a small fee where you can talk live with Bobby Hull during the expo. But it's something different. And during these Corona times, I'm all for doing everything we can to not put ourselves in a position to make it worse. We all have to do our little parts. I know there's lots of differing opinions on it, but I've done some public events. I'm hosting Beckett in Lombard, Illinois, on November 19th. And, there's rules and we got to keep people distant, but we got to still work, but we need to do everything we can to keep healthy. And the virtual expo is fabulous. I was a guest in a booth during the last event. Andy Chung from Goalie Mask Collector had me come on to bring viewers in for an hour, and we talked hockey and life. It's different, and I think everybody should check it out, even just for a couple hours. There'll be different expos rooms where dealers will be set up, and you could look at their merchandise. I know you've been to the Toronto Sports Expo, one of the greatest shows in the world. Steve's so lucky to have taken it over. Autograph guests, they do volume like I don't do anywhere else. I mean, Ed Belfour, who played in Toronto, every time he's there, he does 300-400 autographs. Tony Esposito was there. He did like 500 or 600 to the public. These are guys that I bring to Chicago and they do 100, and we're happy with that. But it's unbelievable. The Toronto Sports Expo, also a great buying show, especially for us Americans, because the exchange rate is so in our favor. So when Canada lets us United States citizens back in, we all do great doing that.
Yeah, the expo in Toronto, I've been setting up there for 15 years. I'm a huge fan of that show. I love it. It's my favorite 6 days of the year because it's the beginning of May and the middle of November. And I also set up as a vendor at the virtual expo in June that Steve Menzie put on. Had a great show. I can only see it getting better. It's November 21st and 22nd. Admission is free. The website is sportcardexpo.com. Sportcardexpo.com. Go there. Get information if you haven't yet. And I'll be set up again as a vendor, basically streaming straight for 2 days. So come check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun. And like you said, Bobby Hull will be on the main stage among Andre Dawson, among other features that they're scheduling for that. So check it out. I can't wait for it. Very excited for it. We're gonna keep going, Steve. Sorry, Joel. We got some other things here. So I want yeah, like Legion says, can't wait to see Bobby Hull at the virtual. Randall tells everybody to get out and vote. We'll throw that up there, out there very quickly. Yam, welcome to the show. Yam will be joining me on Saturday night. He'll be coming on probably about half an hour to an hour into the episode. We're going to be talking about Pokemon. He says there's a great Pacquiao auto on a Pokemon Fighting Energy card. That's pretty funny. Randy Jackson, hello to you. Welcome to the show. Now, Joel, Hat-Trick Heroes are out of Winnipeg. He's going to reach out to you to look for a message from them. Bobby Hull is a legend here, getting goosebumps every time you say his name. I mean, I'm from there too. Bobby Hull was the first great hockey player we had in Winnipeg, followed by Dale Howardchuk, and followed thereafter by Teemu Solani. And then that's pretty much it. It pretty much ended.
No, Dustin Byfuglien.
Dustin Byfuglien, sure. Okay, sure. SD99, welcome to the show. Hello. Wants to know, is investing in Kevin Durant a good investment? If you think he's going to win championships and end up in the Hall of Fame and be one of the greatest of all time, the answer is yes. If you do not think so, then the answer is no. Okay. What else do we have here? We have Steve says if Ed wants to pitch his liquor brand on the virtual expo, that could be fun. Yeah, let's see Ed Belfour at the virtual expo. I'd love to see that.
I'll discuss it with him tomorrow.
And he's from Carmen, Manitoba, if I remember correctly, originally. So he's from just outside of Winnipeg. Adam wants to know, do we have to register to attend the online expo? I believe you do. I think you register because then they send you the link to get in. So if they don't have your email to send you the link to get in, you can't get in. But Steve, who commented just before you did, Adam, owns the show, so he can pipe up and let you know. Or Steve, if you want to put the website in a comment, I'll throw it up on the screen for you. And this Facebook user says, hello from Milwaukee. Hello to you. Glad to have you. Ted Burnett, do you have any old wrestlers you've dealt with? Any stories about wrestlers, Joel?
Oh, my goodness. Can you smell what The Rock is cooking?
Yeah.
Myself and Andrew Bergman from Bergie Sports Dugout brought The Rock into Chicago. You can look up the date because, unfortunately, it was the day before Owen Hart passed away. I think it was 98. And I picked up The Rock at the airport, and that's when you could walk to the gate. So I met him at the gate, and he's going into the bathroom, and he has a travel suitcase. And I go, do you want me to hold your suitcase while you go in? And he goes, no, you might steal my championship belt. I get in the limo with The Rock, and we drive to the store, and there's the biggest crowd I'd ever seen at a signing there. They're lined up outside the store, and they part the ways for us to get through, and they're chanting his name, and he's just the ultimate showman. I want to tell stories about this because it's fun. The Rock signs for us all day long. He wouldn't write know your role. He would write KYR. You know, he was lazy about inscriptions, but it was a lot of fun. Afterwards, we go to dinner with him before the live event that night. And he's telling us stories, how he writes all his own catchphrases. And he was fun. We go to the event with him, and he brings us downstairs. And as we're pulling into the old Rosemont Horizon, now Allstate Arena, he's rolling the window down with his glasses on so the fans can see it's him. And he just goes down an inch so they see his glasses and then puts it back up. And he keeps going up and down to tease them. You know, just a great showman. Let me tell you, we go backstage with him. We hang out with him. We hang out with Mick Foley, Billy Corgan. It's a lot of fun. We go to our seats to watch the first match. It's Owen, one of your great Canadians up there from Calgary, and Jeff Jarrett with Deborah McMichael in a tag team. And they win their match, and my friend and I look at each other and go, this is so boring. After being backstage, we left. Needless to say, it was Owen's last match ever. It was just a tragedy the next night in Kansas City when he fell from the rafters. Owen was one of the greatest guys I hear in the world, just a funny guy, and he was well ahead of his time. If he had lived, he would have revolutionized wrestling with the high flyers, not all being Japanese and Mexican based. But anyway, other wrestlers, I worked with the Big Show a little while later. CM Punk and I have mutual friends through hockey players. And I've been trying to work with him for years. I'm a big wrestling fan myself, even though I stopped watching WWE 4 years ago for political reasons. If you guys aren't watching AEW, which just ended a couple hours ago on TNT every Wednesday night, the greatest wrestling product in U.S. history, I believe. But I've worked with a few other guys over the years, but nothing that memorable. Imagine working with the guy who became the biggest action star in Hollywood years later. I mean, nothing like it. And he was cocky, and he deserves all the success he's had. So
right on. Okay, let's keep going. Cherry Collectibles. These are the guys out of Australia. They have a card shop in Australia, probably the biggest and most recognizable one. So welcome to you guys. Wants to know, are you guys all in on LaMelo? So Joel, he's talking about basketball cards, and LaMelo being, I think, poised to be the first or second overall draft pick in the upcoming draft this year. For me, no, I'm not all in. I'm all out on LaMelo. I'm not a guy who invests in the rookie before he's played a game. I want to make sure he can play in the league and has staying power, etc. And let's see where he ends up going first. But if everything lines up, then why not? Not all in for me, but definitely pick up a piece or two. But anyway, welcome to the show. Nice to see you tune in. Jacob wants to say thanks for doing the show tonight, Joel. Yes, I want to thank Joel for doing it as well. It's good to have you. Dave Kaplan, welcome to the show. Good evening to you out of Vancouver, British Columbia. Good to see you. Joel, I want to back up. We had a comment earlier from Amazed. He says, great interview. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Amazed. He says, who are the top 3 most coveted NHL autographs? And he throws up there Lord Stanley, Howie Morenz. Do you have any insight into this, Joel, like as far as hockey goes?
I got to tell you, the fact that you mentioned Howie Morenz is a pleasure to me. Bobby Hull found an article this year called "Is Bobby Hull the New Howie Morenz?" And those of you who don't know Howie Morenz, look him up. Howie Morenz played for Montreal Canadiens, and he was a superstar player back in the early days of hockey. And back
Well, he's
then,
kind of known. He's known as the first superstar of hockey, is my understanding. Sorry, continue.
no, don't be sorry. And Howie, most people don't know of Howie. I had never heard of him before that, and I'm a hockey guy. But Bobby has become obsessed with Howie Morenz now because he was compared to him in his, early years of hockey. And it's hilarious. Somebody wrote a book about Howie Morenz, and I got in touch with the author, and he sent a copy of the book, which is out of print now, to Bobby. Bobby read it cover to cover and then talked to the author on the phone for 3 hours. The fact that Bobby has that dedication. 81, almost 82 in January, Bobby Hull has a memory like nobody I've ever met. He doesn't forget. So it's really fun when he has something like that. I looked for some Howie autographs for Bobby, and I couldn't find anything I confirmed to be authentic. I really think I used to specialize in Tim Horton autographs because I was always obsessed. As an American, I think Tim Horton donuts are the greatest donuts in the world, and all my Canadian friends tell me Dunkin' Donuts is better. So it must be when you can't have it, on a regular basis. That's what it is. But I thought eventually Tim Horton autographs have to catch on. I don't understand why the franchises don't have an autograph of Tim in every restaurant. Just something a little different, for whatever. I had the first, I got a PSA DNA graded 10 rookie card. There's been a few that have surfaced since. And I think it sold for like $2,000 or something like that. It was, I'm sorry, I'm confusing that with a goal. See, I'm old. I'm confusing that with a goaltender, Pelle Lindbergh. I had Tim Horton autograph photo that I got like $2,000 for, because you don't see very many single signed real photos.
Well, I just want to I just want to point out Dave Kaplan is watching. He put out there, would Pelle Lindbergh be one of them? But back to the question though, Joel. Just if you just had to name the top 3 most coveted NHL or hockey autographs of all time, who comes to mind for you?
Okay, I mean, obviously the obvious one, and I'm not talking legendary because I don't deal much in the legendary hockey autographs. But Wayne Gretzky has been one of the most popular autographs in all of sports for years.
Right, but he's easy to get and very common. We're looking for the elusive. So, we mentioned Howie Morenz. We've mentioned Pelle Lindbergh. We've mentioned Lord Stanley. I mean, if you don't know if it's kind of outside your wheelhouse, that's fine too.
I think it's outside my wheelhouse. I got to tell you, in Chicago here, William Wirtz, who passed away about 10 years ago, his autograph on items is tough. Like, you can't find out, he's a Hockey Hall of Famer. I got lucky and I found a bunch of checks from the Blackhawks from '62. So I had a bunch of his autographs on that. But the truth is like, I found 2 pucks signed by him with Hall of Fame. And it's like, I haven't seen any since. You can find them on index cards and stuff like that. But on premium items, they don't exist.
Yeah.
So that's a more modern example, but I'm not going to, I can't tell you because I haven't dealt in Lord Stanley autographs. That'd be kind of cool to get into though. I assume there's a hell of a market for that type of thing.
Yeah, usually those autographs are picked up by Lee for Upper Deck, and they'll make them into a cut autograph and put them in a card, and everybody clamors for it. So yeah, Matt Burdick wants to know: are you on your 3rd cigar right now?
2. It's my 4th today though. It's my 2nd one. I had 1 when I went to the post office this morning, 1 after dinner, and I've had 2 during this show.
Okay, I want to focus a bit more on cards for a second, Joel. So because you mentioned to me that, we've seen PSA 10 Michael Jordan rookies, we've seen PSA 10 Michael Jordan sticker rookies, and we've seen PSA 10 Magic Johnson, Larry Bird rookies. I don't know the populations, but they're out there. What's your involvement been with some of the early graded cards, and so a double-barreled question here. First of all, because I'm setting you up here because you told me you owned a couple of kind of cool cards. So I want you to talk about those, but I also want you to talk about what was grading like, because you've been around since the beginning of grading with your card shop and all that. Did grading catch on right away? What was it like in the early years?
Right. Yeah. Great. When PSA started grading cards, it was neat, but our theory was, it added more money to the thing. And maybe you know who the dealer is. There's an old hockey dealer who puts all of his cards on a wall behind his table, and they're all raw. He's never dealt in graded cards. And I've
Yeah.
seen him at shows for years.
Yeah, he's got the burgundy colored carpet on the
Yeah.
Dave Kaplan will put his name out there. I can't. Len Potty.
Okay. And like you see him, and guys like that are just, and people trust them. They're usually pretty good. But graded cards have become a fad that has worked. And we see it now with prices out of this world. But anyway, I had a weird situation. Let me backtrack. In the 90s, when the Bulls were hot, and we're talking the first 3 championships, I was so in demand to find Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant rookies that I would drive to every card show in the state of Ohio on a weekend. I would leave Thursday night and I would just get in the car. We didn't have maps on the phone, so I'd use real maps. And, I would go from show to show to show. And I'd run out of money some weekends. I'd have to Western Union myself money at the grocery store to get more money. And as I bragged before, I would carry a lot of money with me. But they hated the Bulls in Cleveland and Ohio especially. So I felt that was the place to go. And I'd get home from the weekend and I'd have 50 Michael Jordan rookies and 200 Scottie Pippens and 200 Horace Grants because they didn't care. They want, I paid good money, but, it wasn't like it is today where, the cheapest Jordan's over 1,000. But anyway, years later, I'm at a show when PSA started grading cards. And Darren Prince, who was an early breaker, who now is a sports management company, Prince Marketing. He manages Hulk Hogan. We talked about Rodman. He did Joe Frazier, Smoking Joe, Hulk Hogan. He's got some nice clients under his wing.
Yeah.
And Darren was a big card dealer, the Prince of Cards. And I walked up to his table, and he had a PSA 10 Michael Jordan rookie sticker and a PSA 10 Bird Magic rookie. And I go, those are cool. How much? And, at the time, it wasn't, you didn't go, oh, my goodness, those are the rarest thing ever because it was new. And I don't remember the exact prices, but let's say the 10 sticker was $200 at the time. Probably it was like a $60 card. And the Bird Magic, I think, was $300. That, in nice shape was a $200 card. So, he was like, I spent $15 to get it graded. It was probably that cheap back then. So, I bought them and I think I easily doubled my money on them. But it wasn't like, now where, you get a 10 Jordan rookie sticker and what is it, 50,000 or more. I don't know. I'm guessing. And I know the Bird Magic 10 is a really tough card to get in high grade. I will put a sidebar on this. I'm guessing grading standards probably weren't as strict as they are now in the first couple of years of DNA. I know people with older holders are sending them back and getting lower grades. But still, it was an amazing situation. And to think that those were probably the first 2 ever graded 10s. The rookie sticker is a tough card to get 10. There's a wax stain on it because it was always the last card in the pack.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question because this interests me, and I was around during the days. If you have a card with a wax stain on it, is it considered unethical to use a nylon to remove the wax stain?
I don't think it's unethical to remove the wax stain that wasn't meant to be there in the first place. I don't think it's unethical to do that.
I don't either, but I hear now that people are, I'm sure, I don't know if you talked about it on the show, but I read a lot about these people are card cleaners. Is that what they call them? And they're like fixing cards so you get a higher grade. And obviously it's not considered kosher.
I think one of the things that isn't considered kosher is when they like fill in a scratch with some foreign substance to smooth it out. So if you're adding anything to the card, if you're adding either paper back to the card where there's been paper loss or the corner's been rounded, that's taboo. You don't want to do that. If you're filling in a scratch with something, if you're adding anything to the card, I believe that's frowned upon. But if you are, if you're simply, what would be the difference between rubbing off the wax stain or taking a piece of paper towel or Kleenex and rubbing off a fingerprint? Neither were meant to be there in the first place. So rub them off. I rub fingerprints off my cards all the time when I get them on a mail day through eBay or wherever, and someone, for some silly reason, put their fingers right on the face of my card. I see some breakers holding cards. I don't have one to. They're holding them like right on. They're holding them like this. With not in a holder. Well, get your fingers off my card that I've already bought from you. Anyway. So yeah, those are my thoughts on that. Listen, let's I wanted to touch on cards there for a bit, but we have two more topics I want to talk about, and we are running out of time. The first one is, state of the hobby sort of stuff, and we talked about it the other day, and I teased it in the opener here, but Brian Gray delivers the closing address at the Beckett Industry Summit every year. You mentioned to me you didn't attend this year, so you didn't hear it. I attended, I heard it, and I'm sure that it had similarities to prior versions of it. But what are your thoughts on, I guess, the state of the hobby and Brian Gray's annual address on the state?
Let me preface this. I consider Brian Gray a dear old friend. We've known each other over 30 years now. Is that right? Yeah, about 30 years now. Brian started with JW the Edge Man, who was a big SED advertiser back in the day, and he branched out on his own. And Brian Gray now owns the Leaf Trading Card company, which is amazing to see how he's progressed from that to that. One of the biggest players in the industry. If you buy baseball cards, football cards, hockey cards, basketball cards, follow Brian on Twitter. He gives a lot of advice on what he thinks are good investments. He's buying like a lot of PSA 10s and putting them away. He thinks the market's too low on them, and he thinks there'll be a nice upside down the road. I don't necessarily agree with all that, but right now it's the hottest thing going. So maybe he's right. He's the one who's a multimillionaire now, so I'm assuming he knows more than I do. But I have watched Brian's closing address to the industry summit a few times. Brian Gray is a great public speaker. A lot of people don't like him. That's fine. A lot of people don't like me. Everybody likes you, Jeremy. But Brian Gray tells it like it is. He sees the hobby for what it is. He's been involved on the ground level. You and I touched on this when we talked the other day. A lot of these card companies go out and they hire people for their college degrees. I think it's amazing that he takes a card company and everybody who works in his company has been involved in cards their whole life. They're collectors. They know the card business. And I think that makes the cards more appealing in the long run. I'm not saying that Topps and Upper Deck and Panini cards aren't amazing cards. Sometimes I see an issue of a new edition and I'm like, who came up with this ugly idea? I hate to say it, but like the Gypsy Queen cards, they're just so silly looking, and I understand people love some of them, but it's just, there's brands that it just doesn't make sense, and I know everybody's trying to come up with something new, but Brian Gray, when he talks, and you're a card person, listen, because Brian Gray's talking from the heart. He loves the industry. He loves what it's been able to do for him and his family. But Brian Gray cares about the hobby. He obviously wants to make a living in it, but he's in this for the long haul, and he's not just playing games with you. He's telling it like it is. So, Brian deserves that respect, and you can go online and YouTube all of his addresses over the years. And, listen, Brian talks about the problems he has in the industry on social media. He's very, very open, but give Brian the respect he deserves. He also is a poker buddy of mine. When we travel to shows, we play together. I got to tell you, I've been playing poker with the card community since the 1980s. Rick Hamilton used to run the games, an old baseball card dealer who traveled the circuit. And, Brian thinks he can bully everybody around in the game. He probably bluffs too much.
It's pretty funny that you bring that up. So a couple of things I want to mention. First thing, Brian was on you're on episode 58 right now, Joel. Brian was my guest on episodes 9 and 35. So those are sitting in the YouTube archive on the Sports Cards Live channel. Anybody watching wants to go back and see what Brian was saying back in May, back in July or August when he was on again. And he's also scheduled to come on again on December the 2nd. So I'll have Brian on that night. I played poker with Brian as well. It was after the National in Chicago or Cleveland one year. And I'll tell you what, I feel like I definitely know his tell. I would love the opportunity to play poker against him again. I think I'd take all his money, or at least the amount of money that he has on the table in front of him. The last thing I want to say for right now, because we were talking about the Sidney Crosby Jambalaya, there's 25 seconds left in that auction. It's now at $365. Here, Joel, this is what it looks like. This is the card we're talking about.
You're done. You're out.
I'm out. It just went to 410. Here, we can watch the last few seconds of this together because there could be a couple more bids. There's 8 seconds left. So let's see if it jumps up any more in the last 4 or 5 seconds. There it goes. 535. Any more left? 661. There we go. That's a new record for a Sidney Crosby jambalaya. I have to think. I love it because I was very bullish on those cards. So very quickly, Edward says, great show and guest. Thank you, Edward. Great to have you on. And Joel, I want to put this question up here for you because it's a great question that Dave and I were talking about the other night, and I'm not really sure the answer to this. So what are your thoughts? And now he's saying, is it better to get an autograph graded by PSA DNA or just get it graded? So, sorry, or just, is it better to get the autograph authenticated or graded or both? Like, and do you recommend that to be like, we'll just stick with PSA because he's asking about PSA DNA.
Okay, let me bite my tongue a little. Excuse me. I personally only get premium autographs graded that you are pretty sure are going to get a 9 or a 10. Joe DiMaggio signed baseballs, Mickey Mantle signed baseballs, the top end stuff that might make a difference to a collector. When I'm getting a Hank Aaron baseball autographed, I don't want to pay the extra money to have it cubed or a full letter service instead of a small cert. I don't think it's necessary. If you want to do it for your personal collection and that's going to make you happy, do it. Look at that autograph under a loop. Make sure it's a high-end autograph underneath there, because you don't want to take that risk and send it in. I think you could say on there only grade if 9 or 10, but they're still going to charge you the grading fee if it doesn't grade that price. So keep that in mind if you decide to do that. Because if you get a 7 autograph on it, well, a 7 autograph nobody cares about. It's not like a card that's a 7. So
yeah, agreed. Adam says $661. The secret is out. The secret is certainly out, Adam. I wonder how much, I had a little bit to do with that, just posting about this on Instagram over the past few months and buying these cards. So I might have done it to myself a little bit. Not that I have, that much influence, but I have had people say to me, I'm collecting hockey cards now after watching your show and following you on Instagram and this and that. And what I'm noticing, a lot of basketball collectors, when they come over to hockey, they like the same brands that remind them of basketball cards. And jambalaya is a Fleer product, so that ties in there. Joel, the last topic I want you to talk about a little bit, because in a couple minutes worth, is you're a professional poker player. You said it a couple times. What kind of advice would you give people who are going out there? They're going to card shows, the autograph shows, they're buying these items. What poker skills would you advise people to use when they're negotiating on cards?
Listen, I've always been a fierce negotiator. When I specialized in trading cards, I was the guy who, I didn't care if people came to my store to buy stuff. I just didn't want the deals to walk out when people were selling me stuff. As a poker player, I studied human tells, was my specialty. So when I'm looking at somebody at the poker table and they make a large bet into me, I try to evaluate, are they betting to get me out because they can't beat me? Are they betting because they have the best hand? I look for the different tells, how they're breathing, where they're looking. Do they seem nervous? Does it seem like fake nervousness? Somebody who sits still, I'm not supposed to tell my tells, but somebody who sits still that doesn't move is often bluffing more often than somebody who seems happy and carefree. It's different situations. Somebody who's looking away probably has a stronger hand than somebody who's staring dead at me. That's not foolproof. The pros know these tells, but not everybody is a pro who comes into play. Negotiating to buy a collection, especially from a dealer at a trade show, obviously you want to get the best price possible. If somebody's asking $500 for something and you go in and offer them $350 and they go $425 and you're trying to beat them up, and let's say in your head you're willing to pay $400, you get a feel for it. And sometimes it doesn't matter what they say. You're going to buy it no matter what the rock bottom price is. But obviously you want to try to get the best price. Negotiating on eBay, where most of us do a lot of our buying these days, is a whole lot different. Yeah. I'm very tough. Like, I have a system because everything on my eBay has a make an offer button. I have a price. If you offer me $2 less, I'm going to counter offer you $2 more. And if you say I'm out, and some people do it just for fun. If it's $35 and they're offering $33 and they're not going to take it for $35, so long. Yeah. But the truth is you just gotta, you just gotta, hold to your gun and sometimes walk away. And I've had dealers come running back up to me on large deals because they know they're not going to sell it to anybody else that day, and they rather have the money than the inventory. It's not a buyer's market right now. The market is high.
Yeah.
Could it go higher? Yes. But you just saw a card go for $600 that you were debating if you were going to bid when it was 200.
Yeah.
I wish I was still dealing in cards right now. What's happened in the last 6 months is there's a pandemic. People are staying at home. People are buying stuff, but there's a lot of corporate money behind all these buys. A lot of the top 5% that are buying, investing in cards because they can't find anything to invest in. We talked about the Magic cards, how David Williams has been buying those for years as investments. People are looking for different things that they think long-term are going to be strong. And, high-grade cards are amazing right now. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, they're killing it for sure. Dennis says, I think grading autographs is not worth it. They can fade or bleed over time. Very quickly, how do you avoid the fading or bleeding? Would it simply be to keep them out of light? And if that's the case, a lot of autograph collectors want to display their pieces. Is there some special glass you can put over your pieces?
UV glass is a myth. It doesn't do anything. I sold a good friend of mine who I've been friends with for years, season ticket holder for the Blackhawks and Bears for 40 plus years each. A team signed photo from the first cup in 2010 that the Blackhawks won. And I walked into a cigar room in his condo the other day, and all of the half was in blue, half was in silver, and all the autographs in blue have faded off because it was in direct sunlight. And he's like, "Isn't it UV glass?" And I'm like, "It's in direct sunlight. You can't do anything." And he's heartbroken. I keep my autographs that I display, and we should probably touch on this. What do I collect? I collect personalized autographs to Joel, and that's it. I have my favorite ones framed in my office. Muhammad Ali, I used to have signed old magazines to Joel. Muhammad would do a show and I would buy 40 autographs for retail. The price wasn't very much back then, for $30, $40, $50 each. And I would have them personalized about, 5 or 6 pieces. I CM Punk I talked about. I have a great photo from him where he wrote to Joel, "You're the second best in the world." Funny one I have, Andrew Shaw, one of my clients from the Blackhawks, scored a goal via a headbutt in Anaheim in double overtime in the playoffs a few years ago. And after the game, I texted him. The goal was disallowed. It would have won the game. They won it on a Marcus Kruger goal a little while later. But I texted Andrew and I said, "I can get the photo of this goal. And you're going to have to sign them with an inscription, the greatest goal that never was, and the date. And but I'm going to sell them now, and whether you win the cup or not, you have to sign every one I sell." And he goes, "Do it." Well, we sold over 400 of them, and they won the cup, and he was mad because his autograph price went up after winning the cup. I took one of those 16 by 20s, and I'm going to have to use an abbreviation because we're not allowed to swear on the show. But after writing the inscription on the bottom, he wrote, "To Joel, you sure had me sign a blank ton of these." You can guess what the word blank is, for a goal that didn't even count. Another lovely one is Duncan Keith signed him winning the cup in 2015. And he wrote, "I scored the goal to win the Blanken Cup." Stuff like that I collect.
That's pretty cool.
I got to be honest. I keep them all in Toyo folders, except the 5 or 6 framed in my dark office on the wall with no sunlight. And I like it that way. So it is what it is.
All right, cool. I want to throw Paul's comment up there quickly, like the Crosby precious metal gems that I beat him on, because again, someone who I believe Paul came over to hockey more recently, and yeah, that was a great card, Paul. I'm sorry I beat you on it, but I certainly didn't beat you on the jambalaya. Did any of you guys win that jambalaya tonight? Because I like how we call it winning. All you're winning is the obligation to send somebody else money to buy it. You don't win anything, right? You're right to buy something. Anyway, that's just another thing. That's a sidebar. Okay, Joel, we're gonna go into the part of the show where I show off a card from my personal collection that ties into the guest. Now, the card, I don't have it with me. It's put away, but I do have a picture of it, and this is my card. I promise y'all, it is my card. So we're gonna throw that up there right there, and I'm going to share my screen now to be able to show you guys what card it is. And here it comes. There it is. This is my Bobby Hall PSA 6 rookie card. Joel, I see you're leaning in to see it. Beautiful card, great player. We've talked so much about him tonight, and this is the second copy I had. I bought a PSA 5 of this from Joe Daly Sports Cards in the late 80s, early 90s. That I actually got graded myself.
Is Joe Daly still with us?
He's still with us. He's coming on my show in December, actually. Yeah, he'll be on with me in December. So
that's great.
I bought the first copy from Joe, and it was actually 1989, I believe. I paid him $800 for it. I got it graded in 2008. It came back at PSA 5. I kept it for a long time, and then I ended up buying this card off another collector, and I sold the PSA 5 eventually. And now I have this 6, which is a great card. I'm super happy to own it. And all this talk about Bobby. And I took my 5 back in the day, probably in the 90s. I took it to meet Bobby Hall in Winnipeg when he was there for an event. I went to his hotel. I think Joe Daly set me up to go meet up with Bobby Hall. And I got him to sign the holder that it was in, which I no longer have. I lost track of that a long time ago. But that is my PC card of the day for this episode 58. With Joel Alpert. I'm also going to show off another card just because we were talking about it. So I also have this card here, guys. This is a different Sidney Crosby jambalaya from a different year than the one that we just saw. This is the 0910. I think it's actually a bit of a rarer card, believe it or not. And anyway, I'll show that one too because that's pretty cool in the Beckett 9.5 holder. So happy to share those today for the PC card of the day segment. Thank you very much.
Can you get that card on eBay and get $1,000 or $1,200 or $1,500 for it? I mean, why do you still have that card if raw cards are going for $660?
It wasn't raw, and I'm a collector. So I keep it. I keep the card. Yeah, Legion. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Terry. Thank you. You sure know your vintage, so I appreciate that. And Legion says, UV inhibitors are a real thing in polycarbonate if it's included as part of the polymer additive package. That's a lot of science there, Legion. But thank you for sharing. Okay, Joel. Listen, we're at the end of the show, my man. So I'm gonna first of all start by thanking everybody for tuning in. Joel, thanks for publicizing that you were coming on. I want to thank all of the people, all of your fans, all the people, your friends, your family who came to watch it. Thanks for tuning in, guys. If you're new to Sports Cards Live, which many of you are, please give a thumbs up to the video on eBay. Please subscribe to the channel. If you found this interesting, I've got a great library of old episodes. Lots of great guests. A lot of people we've been talking about. Steve Grad has been a guest on my show. Brian Gray several times. So be sure to check that out. Hit the subscribe button. I greatly appreciate that. And Joel, while we go through some of the parting comments, because we got a lot of people, Adam says, love that, Sid. Thank you very much. Yam says, jambalayas are just gorgeous. Great card. Thank you. Randy says, goodbye. Goodbye to you, Randy. Thanks for tuning in. Dennis, it was great having you. Thanks for interacting. Legion, always appreciate you giving us a round of applause. Paul Cashman, great show. Can't wait to see Joel on again. There you go, Joel. You got fans on my show even. Isn't that great? Randall G, thank you for tuning in. Appreciate having you. Orvie, good to see you. Awesome. Great show. I'm glad you tuned in, buddy. Glad you tuned in. Matt Burdick, great to have you. I'm glad you found Joel interesting. I certainly did. The beautiful thing for me is that I get to hang out with my guests 2 nights in a row usually. So it's the best part about doing this show is just getting to know people better, forming these relationships and making more friends. It's a lot of fun. Joel, why don't you close us out? I know at the end of your show, you like to sing a song. I promised you. And guys, he begged me. Let me sing. I'm just kidding. You didn't beg me. But I'm going to let you sing your song.
Okay, I'm gonna give a plug to my show. What did Jacob say there? Oh, Jacob's singing the song.
Here's Jacob, a plug to your show. It's on the ticker right now as well. It's called Ask Joel Anything, but go ahead.
Right. Anyway, I told everybody, I've been doing a show on my personal Facebook called Ask Joel Anything since stay-at-home orders started in late March. And we're closing restaurants down in Illinois again this week. So we're moving backwards, not forwards, which really stinks. You guys have done a great job up in Canada of trying to make a difference, and I'm proud of you guys for that. And I wish I could go to Canada because I love it up there. Anyway, you can find it. You can find me on Facebook and befriend me. I might accept you. Ask Joel Anything is its own Facebook page. I do shows with no warning, usually an hour teaser or a half-hour teaser before I do it. And I just sit there and I answer questions and I talk about my opinions of the world. We talk about a wide range of everything. I want to do my ending song, and I have 3 rules to live by that I do at the end of every show, that are modern rules for the coronavirus world. So are we done? I'm going to sing my song, and we're done.
Well, I want to, before you do that,
Okay.
Steven, your friend Steve says, great show in spite of the guest, but he's just kidding. Joel's a friend. Ed says, night, guys. This guy Joel was really entertaining.
Ed has to wake up at 3 in the morning to go to work, and the fact that he stayed up for this is amazing. Thank you.
Thanks for doing that, Ed. And we are good, Joel. You can give your 3 rules, sing your song, and then we're done.
And my mother actually texted me at 10:30, which was a half hour ago, Chicago time, and said she watched the first hour and a half of the show. So we got my mother actually to tune in, and she doesn't have Facebook, so she doesn't see my shows. Anyway, I guess we're done, so we sing a little song. So long, farewell. I'm glad we had this time together. I thank everybody for tuning in. Jeremy, I really appreciate you having me on. You're a great host, and you're very entertaining, and I'm amazed that you and I had met before the show, and we didn't even realize it. I hosted dinner at all the Chicago Nationals, and a few years ago we did it at Uno's Pizza down in Chicago, because all my friends and I argued about pizza, and I think Uno's is the greatest thick crust pizza in the world. And no, the franchises don't come close to the original in Chicago. But I brought 50 people down there, and Jeremy was part of the press pass group that came. And we didn't even realize till about an hour before the show that Jeremy was at that dinner that I hosted that evening. So anyway, 3 rules to live by, guys. And these are common sense rules. Number 1, and I'm sure Jacob's typing them all in right now. Number 1, when they ask you to wear a face mask in public, don't be that little whiny guy who goes, why? Just wear it. The employees are doing it because that's what they've been instructed to do, and we're just trying to keep everybody healthy during this time. Number 2, carry hand sanitizer with you. Everybody should be washing their hands more often than not. I've been a hand sanitizer nut for 12, 14 years now. It's amazing now that it's become a thing. And number 3, Jeremy, you might not like this on your show, but I have a good hygiene rule. All adults should have baby wipes by every toilet in the house. It's just common sense. It's one area everybody should keep clean. Those are 3 rules I have to live by. I love everybody for tuning in. Your crowd was great. I had a lot of my friends on too. This was a lot of fun. And I see we went overtime. You and I were worried if we'd have enough to talk about for 90 minutes. I think we could have gone on for another 2 hours. So
we probably could have, man. You seriously, you are a great guest, Joel. You're an entertaining guy. Thanks for joining. Thanks to all your friends and family for watching. Thanks everybody else for watching. I don't know why you'd think I'd have a problem with keeping baby wipes by the toilet. I got 2 little kids. I'm all about that. So no problem there at all. But again, thanks, Joel. It was a lot of fun, man. Thanks for all the insights. Your experience is a lot of fun to learn about, your history in the hobby, autographs, cards, all that. You've been in it for a long time. So appreciate you coming on. We'll do something again in the future for sure. Everybody else, good night. We will be back on Saturday and Wednesday. We're booked right through, guys, on Wednesdays and Saturdays, moving right into the middle of December at this point. I'll throw up the upcoming guests there as we're rolling out. And what else? Yeah, hit that subscribe button, like the video, all those wonderful things. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Until next time, good night. Joel, you hang out right there for a minute.